Chapter 2026. After pausing for a moment, she finally found something to say. Why are you jealous of yourself? No matter if it's you now or 50,000 years later, you're still you. Shinjuli opened his eyes. Are you sure that I'll still be the same after 50,000 years? And not be reincarnated? Ning Xuema. She didn't know how Shinjuli left the mythical continent for the Tianxi continent after little Xuema sealed Zisha. It was not easy to leave the mythical continent. The passages to other continents were all sealed, unlike the Tianxi continent, where one could go to other places through space jumps. The mythical continent was like a closed place. Once you entered, you would never be able to leave. Perhaps only by dying in the mythical continent and reincarnating could one be reborn in other continents. Therefore, she couldn't say for sure whether the Almighty in 50,000 years would still be the same Almighty now. Your appearance, style, and way of doing things haven't changed. She felt that Shinjuli had always been the same Shinjuli. He hadn't changed at all. Shinjuli closed his eyes. He was a god. If he reincarnated, he shouldn't have changed at all. Therefore, what Ning Xuema said couldn't prove that he would still be the same after 50,000 years. You can leave, Shinjuli said. His voice was colder than before. Your injury. Ning Xuema was worried. She kept one of her hands on the bathtub to warm it up for him. I know what I'm doing. Get out. Shinjuli simply asked her to leave. Ning Xuema, her eyes turned red. She couldn't tell what she was feeling in her heart. She took a deep breath and reached her hand into his bathtub to feel around. Shinjuli leaned back slightly. You, Ning Xuema said, what about you? You think I want to take advantage of you? I'm just testing the water temperature. The water temperature was hot enough. His face looked better than before. Obviously he had warmed up. She was indeed not needed here, so she walked out in large strides. Shinjuli closed his eyes. His mind was in a mess and he couldn't figure out what was going on. A moment later, footsteps sounded again. He subconsciously opened his eyes and frowned. Why did you come back? Ning Xuema put a change of clothes on the small table next to him. She didn't look at him. Don't worry, I don't mean to take advantage of you. I just want to give you a clean set of clothes. She turned around and walked out. Shinjuli. She looked at her small couch in the corner. Shinjuli didn't seem to want to see her. Should she continue to be an eyesore to him? It was raining heavily outside, and she would be struck by lightning the moment she went out. Naturally, she couldn't go out at this time. Therefore, after thinking for a while, she decided to go to the outer room and conjure up a bed before lying down. The outer room of the sleeping quarters was naturally not as airtight as the inner room. The wind outside could blow in through the cracks in the door. She lay on the bed and listened to the sound of the wind and rain outside. She was very sleepy, but she couldn't sleep. She didn't want to argue with him, but the sound of the rain outside was louder and fiercer. Her mind was as chaotic as the rain. This was the most difficult day since she came to this world. The wind was a little cold. She pulled the quilt closer to her body. Another day had passed. How was little Nianma? Creak, creak, creak. A gust of wind blew past, and unexpectedly blew open the tightly shut palace door once again. A gust of wind mixed with the drizzle blew into the room, causing Ning Xuema to shiver under the blanket. Chapter 2027. She stared at the two open doors and was a little worried. If she went to close the door, she would be struck by lightning. If she didn't close it, she would be exposed to the cold wind for the whole night. Or should she move back to the inner room? Although it would be embarrassing and he might even laugh at her, it was better than being exposed to the cold wind for the whole night, right? Forget it. She would move back. She got up and was about to take action. Ning Xuema. A shout suddenly came from the inner room. Before the voice died away, Shinjuli rushed out from the inner room. The outer hall was dark. Shinjuli saw the two open doors first. He thought that Ning Xuema had rushed out of the hall in a fit of anger again. The lightning tribulation was waiting for her outside. Maybe she would be struck immediately and her soul would scatter and disappear without a trace. His face was pale and his hands were cold. When he was about to chase after her, a voice came from behind him. I'm here. He suddenly turned around and saw the bed in the corner of the hall. Naturally, he also saw the person on the bed. Shinjuli was speechless. His hanging heart fell back into his stomach. Why did you run out? The bed inside can't accommodate you? Seeing that she was safe, he breathed a sigh of relief. At the same time, the anger in his heart flared up again. Just now, when he came out from behind the screen and saw that there was no one on the two beds, his heart skipped a beat. Then he heard the door open and thought that she had rushed out without a care. His tone was really not good. Anyone with a discerning eye could tell that he was angry. His aura was already strong. Now that he was angry, his aura became even stronger. It almost made the temperature in the hall drop by a few degrees. He didn't get angry easily. Once he got angry, the people facing him would be scared to the point of kneeling down. He didn't expect that Ning Xuema didn't kneel down. Instead, she threw herself into his arms and almost made him stumble. You. His arms stiffened. For a moment, he didn't know whether to take advantage of the situation to hug her in his arms or push her out. Why did you run out to the outer room for no reason? His voice unconsciously softened by a few notes. You kept telling me to go out just now, so I thought you didn't want to see me anymore, so... Her little face was buried in his chest, and her voice sounded a little wronged. Shinjuli, just as he was about to pull her off his body, he suddenly felt something wet on his chest. Was she crying? His heart seemed to be pricked by something. He coldly said, "Why are you crying?" Although his voice was cold, his arms could not help but wrap around her and gently hug her. He felt that he should be the one crying. He knew that the other party was only using him as a substitute, but he couldn't let go. You took matters into your own hands and forced me to stay without discussing it with me. I threw a small tantrum and you became fierce to me. She began to accuse him, her voice choked with sobs. Shinjuli. This was indeed his fault. I was drunk at the time. He was powerless to explain again. If you weren't drunk, then you wouldn't have used this spell, right? Well, Shinjuli didn't know the answer to this question himself. Perhaps he would have used it. After all, he had studied this spell day and night for several days to come up with it. He had been waiting for her to come and use it as soon as she came. In the end, this thought became an obsession, and he didn't forget it even when he was drunk. You were fierce to me just now. You chased me away several times in a row as if you were drawing a line between us. You didn't want me anymore. She continued to accuse him, her voice choking even more. Shinjuli. He felt like a scholar meeting a soldier, unable to reason with a soldier. Chapter 2028. Shinjuli, you've taken advantage of me so many times, and now you're turning against me just like that. You don't want me anymore and you don't want me anymore. Why is my life so hard? How did I fall in love with you? She almost burst into tears. Her tears were warm and they directly soaked his chest. Her tears seemed to have scalded his heart, and it tightened into a ball. At that moment, he had the illusion that he was about to be defeated. He just wanted to hold her in his arms and never let go. He lived in this world and no matter what he wanted, he could get it with just a flick of his finger. Therefore, he didn't care about anyone and no one could disturb his state of mind. However, this was the first time he was helpless in front of a woman, and it was also the first time he had the idea of getting someone by hook or by crook. He hugged her and walked into the room and he couldn't help but argue with her. The person you love isn't me but someone 50,000 years later. But that's all you. You've never changed. It's always been you. How can you be so unreasonable? She felt even more wronged and she finally showed her little face, but her tears flowed down in both directions. She cried like this and Shinjuli couldn't keep a straight face. At the same time, he deeply understood that when a woman was unreasonable, he would be shooting himself in the foot if he tried to reason with her. Forget it, it's my fault. Don't cry. He just wanted to stop her tears. Fortunately, although she cried, she still walked with him. She didn't throw a tantrum and stay outside. He half supported and half carried her to the bed. He looked at the small couch and then looked at his big bed. He couldn't decide where to put her. He stood between the two beds and while he hesitated, Ning Xuema, who was in his arms, seemed to be tripped by something and directly fell toward the big bed. Shinjuli was hugging her and he did not have much strength left in his body. Naturally, Shinjuli was dragged onto the bed by her. Unfortunately, Shinjuli ended up on top of Shinjuli. She pinned him so tightly that he could barely move. Shinjuli. He pushed her. Get down. Ning Xuema looked at him with teary eyes for a moment, and his heart tightened again. Ning Xuema's eyes dimmed. You're sleeping in separate beds from me, right? Then I'll go down. She rolled off his body and staggered, almost falling off the bed. Shinjuli almost subconsciously reached out and grabbed her. Thus, she was lying on top of him again. Her eyes lit up again. Are you going to sleep with me? Her eyes flickered in the dark night, making Shinjuli's heart skip a beat. He couldn't bring himself to refuse her. He had originally made up his mind to find a way to break the soul-locking curse on her and then send her away. At the same time, he would forcefully withdraw his feelings and treat her like an ordinary person. But he couldn't do it. Even he himself did not understand why he would fall in love with someone so madly. Before this, he had only treated her as a child. Yes, his feelings for her had always been different, but it wasn't the kind of love that made people crazy like poppies. He had never cared so much about a person before. He wanted to tie her to his side every day, and he didn't want her to leave his side. This kind of care had become a kind of obsession, and this crazy obsession made him a little scared and a little confused. He didn't say anything, but he didn't push her away either. Chapter 2029. Ning Xuema knew that he was injured, but she was afraid that she would crush him. She rolled to the side and nestled in his arms. She reached out and hugged his waist. "Almighty, you still love me, don't you? Let's not quarrel anymore." She didn't transmigrate 50,000 years just to quarrel with him. Xinjiuli, hugging her in his arms again, the feeling was not ordinary. It was as if he had found half of his heart. Hugging her like this, he actually felt incomparably at ease. However, he was still concerned about one thing. "You call him Almighty?" Ning Xuema knew that the him he was referring to was the Xinjiuli 50,000 years later. Being jealous of her own future, she felt a little troubled. She nudged her head into his arms. "I'm not calling him. I'm calling you. It's always been you." She started to beat around the bush. She rubbed her eyes again and said in a pitiful voice, "Almighty, I'm sleepy." Her eyes were still watery and her nose was still red. Xinjiuli's heart softened. He accepted his fate and pulled her into his arms. "Go to sleep. Don't torment yourself anymore." "Okay, Almighty. Good night." Ning Xuema kissed him gently on the cheek. Then she hugged him and fell asleep contentedly. Her lips were like a butterfly. It was only a light touch on his cheek, but it made Xinjiuli's heart skip a beat. Looking at her beside him, he had the urge to press her down and kiss her until the world turned dark. However, it was a good thing that he controlled himself in time. His current body did not allow him to do so. He was also extremely tired. Now that he had her in his arms, his heart finally calmed down. He closed his eyes and fell asleep. He didn't know when Ning Xuema had opened her eyes. She looked at him who had his eyes closed and was in deep sleep. Then she gently pressed her palm against his chest. He was severely injured when he was struck by the heavenly Tao. Ning Xuema felt it when she hugged him just now. That was why she shamelessly climbed into his bed, just to be close to him and help him heal his injuries. Although Ning Xuema's medical skills were not as good as Xinjiuli's, she could not be underestimated. She had created a kind of recovery technique which was very good. Even if a person's organs were broken, she could use this method to quickly heal them. Xinjiuli's current injuries were just right for her. However, the first time this method was used, it had to be done when the patient was asleep and his mind was completely peaceful. Therefore, she had been waiting for this opportunity. Now that Xinjiuli had finally fallen asleep, she had no more scruples. Her palms gradually emitted a faint green light, and waves of it surged towards Xinjiuli's injured organs. Ning Xuema didn't know how long she had been in this state. Seeing that the sky outside had turned white, Ning Xuema finally stopped. She then felt his pulse and was relieved to find that his injuries had mostly healed. She heaved a sigh of relief and her lips curled into a smug smile. Her medical skills were really not to be underestimated. It was just that he was usually too strong, so her medical skills were overshadowed. This set of techniques was very tiring. Ning Xuema had been busy for half the night, and it was even more tiring than fighting. She snuggled into his arms. After thinking for a while, she moved his arm to the side to prevent her from using it as a pillow. He was still injured, and if his arm was used as a pillow, his blood vessels would not flow properly. After everything was done, she finally fell asleep. Xinjiuli had a super strong biological clock. No matter how late he slept, he would definitely wake up at that time. Chapter 2030. When he opened his eyes, the first ray of sunlight shone on the windowsill. It was as if the storm last night had never happened. He looked at Gu Shijio, who was in his arms. She was sleeping soundly. Her long eyelashes covered her eyes, and her eyelids were a little pale. Obviously she was very tired last night. There were dark circles under her eyes. He subconsciously reached out to touch her eyelids to wipe away the dark circles. However, he remembered that it was not suitable for him to use any more telekinesis. He sighed softly and was about to withdraw his arm when he suddenly felt that his injuries had inexplicably healed by more than half. He was stunned. He knew his own injury very well. When he was attacked by the heavenly Tao, his internal organs were almost displaced. Several of his internal organs were cracked. This kind of injury could not be treated with ordinary medicine. It needed to be treated with telekinesis. However, after he was hit by the lightning, his telekinesis was almost depleted. It was difficult for him to heal himself. Initially, after he left Ning Xuema, he hid in a quiet room to heal himself. When he heard the thunder, he rushed back to his bedroom regardless of the pain. What he did last night had worsened his injury. That was why Ning Xuema could easily push him to the ground. This kind of injury could not be healed automatically with rest. It had to be treated. Now he had only slept for a while and he was almost healed. His gaze fell on Ning Xuema's pale face. What did she do to him last night? Did she heal him? He slowly touched her pulse and sensed her body. Her telekinesis was not reduced, but her physical strength was exhausted. When he was about to sleep, he saw that her lips were still pink. However, at this moment they were a little pale. This was obviously a symptom of excessive exhaustion. Nianma. Ning Xuema, who was sleeping soundly, suddenly murmured. Shenjiuli's fingers that were holding her wrist tightened slightly. She was actually still worried about the child. A half-year-old child, Shenjiuli was usually too arrogant and did not talk to ordinary people. Therefore, he did not understand the situation of a half-year-old child. When he was half a year old, he had already started to roam the 6 realms and was already famous. As for Xuema, when Xuema was half a year old, she had already become a little overlord on a small mountain in the demon realm. She had even decorated her own nest with sparkling pearls that could blind people's eyes. She proudly pulled him to look at it. He and Xuema were both orphans, so he couldn't understand what it was like for a child to lose their parents' protection. That kid should be able to become independent now, right? It wasn't good for him to keep pestering his mother. If he had the chance in the future, he would definitely teach that brat a good lesson and let him learn to be independent. Shenjiuli thought unkindly. He originally wanted to get up and cultivate, but looking at her in his arms, he didn't want to move. I'm so hungry. Ning Xuema mumbled again, frowning slightly. It was only then that Shenjiuli remembered that she hadn't eaten anything the entire day yesterday. Ning Xuema slept until late in the morning before she woke up. When she woke up, she found Shenjiuli sitting next to her and cultivating. He seemed to have sensed her movement and opened his eyes. You're awake? Let's go eat if you're awake. In fact, Ning Xuema smelled the aroma of food when she woke up. She smiled and squinted her eyes. Needless to say, the Almighty had already prepared breakfast for her. She rushed to him, hugged his neck and kissed him on the cheek. Almighty, kiss me. After the kiss, she jumped out of bed and went to wash up. Shenjiuli touched the part of his body that was kissed by her. There was a kind of warmth bubbling in the depths of his heart like spring water. Chapter 2031. The food that Shenjiuli prepared for her was very good. It was all her favorite food. More importantly, it was no longer a fish. Ning Xuema's eyes almost turned into a crescent moon. Xuema had been eating fish for the past few days. Although the fish was very delicious, she was tired of eating it every day. Now the table was full of all kinds of food. It looked, smelled and tasted good. Great God, why don't you eat with me? Ning Xuema pulled his sleeve again. Shenjiuli was helpless. In fact, he had already abstained from eating. He rarely ate. Even if he occasionally ate a little, it was just to taste something new. Now, looking at her watery eyes, he suddenly felt a little hungry and had the desire to eat. The two of them sat at the table and ate. The atmosphere was very harmonious. As Ning Xuema ate, she thought of her son. How nice it would be if Nianma was here too. A family of 3 sitting together to eat. This should be the most common scene, but it seemed like an extravagant hope to her. She wondered how little Nianma was doing now. She had died in front of him 2 or 3 times. He should be mentally prepared and would not be too afraid. However, the premise was that the bastard Luo Jiuchen would not find trouble with him. However, based on Luo Jiuchen's character, once the prison was broken, he would definitely come out. She was not sure if the 8 mythological beasts could successfully steal her body and transport it back. If they were intercepted by Luo Jiuchen, she was afraid that her body would fall into his hands. She did not know what he would do by then. Initially, she was still smiling, but the smile disappeared as she ate. She frowned slightly. She picked up a piece of meat, but it fell back to the plate. A few drops of vegetable juice splashed on her face, but she did not seem to feel it. Shenjiuli quietly took a handkerchief and wiped the vegetable stains on her face. He asked calmly, "Little Nianma, what does he look like?" Ning Xuema's eyes lit up. This was the first time that the master took the initiative to talk about his future son. She immediately said, "He is very smart, very beautiful and very cute." She used the word special several times in a row, her tone full of pride as a mother. Shenjiuli looked at her sparkling eyes and said, "Then you draw him later and let me see." "Sure." Ning Xuema agreed readily. She was an impatient person. She put down her chopsticks and wanted to take out a pen and paper to draw. Shinjuli held her hand. Why are you in such a hurry? Eat first. He saw that she didn't eat much. Ning Shuima had no choice but to pick up her chopsticks again. She was anxious and couldn't help but wolf down her food. She almost choked on a piece of meat. Shinjuli rubbed his eyebrows and said, Don't eat ravenously. You have to chew slowly. It's good for your body's recovery. My body has almost recovered. Ning Shuimo raised her face, her eyes lively. Almighty, our son is really amazing. You or me? He looks a little like you. He is so handsome that no medicine can cure him. His personality is a little like mine. Ning Shuima was exhilarated when talking about her son. So handsome that no medicine can cure him. Shinjuli resisted the urge to correct her bad habit of using words. He looked at her with a half smile. Like you in personality? Like to cry? Like to be spoiled? Ning Shuima was speechless. Could it be that little Nianma inherited her bad habit of crying? No. Since when did she like to cry? Most of her cries were fake. Was a trick. She rarely cried for real. Ning Shuima felt that she was strong, so she raised her eyebrows. I don't like to cry. Chapter 2032. Shinjuli glanced at her and said slowly, Who was the one crying last night? Ning Shuima touched her nose. Her crying last night was half real and half fake. If she hadn't cried last night, Shinjuli would probably still be angry with her. I don't usually cry. Ning Shuima defended herself. It seems that you only like to cry in front of me? Then I'll feel a sense of accomplishment if I can make you cry. Shinjuli was back to his usual sharp tongue. Ning Shuima. She didn't know how she was when she was young, but she rarely cried after she grew up. She remembered that the few times she cried, it seemed to be because of Shinjuli. In front of him, she unconsciously acted like a child who longed for him to protect her. She wanted to share her happiness with him, and she wanted to taste her sweetness with him. How did you treat me last night? Shinjuli suddenly asked. A secret technique. I just succeeded in researching it. Ning Shuima answered casually. After answering, she raised her head and was a little surprised. How did you know that I treated you? She remembered that he was asleep at that time. I could feel it. Shinjuli looked at her. I didn't expect your medical skills to be so good. Ning Shuima smiled again. That's right. I've done heart repair surgery before. I've treated many difficult and complicated diseases. Well, when you have time, let's compare notes. Let me see your true level. Sure. I guarantee that you'll see me in a new light. Ning Shuima was full of confidence. Shinjuli liked to see her lively eyes and smiling face. Seeing her like this, even if he was in a bad mood, he would inexplicably feel better. Yes, he couldn't bear to part with her. He couldn't bear to let her leave. If she left again, it was hard to say if she could come back. If she couldn't come back, then he would have to be separated from her for 50,000 years? 50,000 years, what a long time. Originally, when he had no desires, he never felt that time was difficult to endure. Now that he thought about it, 50,000 years felt terrifyingly long. No way. He didn't want to be separated from her for so long. Perhaps he should consider transmigrating to 50,000 years later with her? Since she could travel back in time from 50,000 years in the future, he should be able to travel back in time as well, right? But what method should he use? While he was deep in thought, Ning Shuima had already cleaned up the leftovers on the table. She was anxious to let him see his son, so she took out a pen and paper and began to draw. By the time Shinjuli came back to his senses, she had already drawn a rough outline of her son. If Shinjuli's painting skills claimed to be second, no one would dare to claim to be first. Naturally, he could tell the quality of a person's painting. Ning Shuima's painting skills were not high. She did not have the artistic conception of a real painter. But she paid attention to realism. The child's figure gradually appeared under her pen and looked very lifelike. That child's every frown and smile were so lifelike. This showed the importance of this child in her heart. Only a person who truly cared about someone could draw that person's body and spirit with just a few strokes. What appeared in the painting was a child who looked to be 1 or 2 years old. He had a pair of big watery eyes and a small mouth that was slightly pursed. It looked as if he could jump off the painting paper and roll on the ground. Shinjuli's heart skipped a beat. It was obviously the first time he saw this child, but there was an inexplicable sense of familiarity. It was as if he could hear his delicate voice calling out, Lord Father. Chapter 2033. It was his first time seeing the child, but there was an inexplicable sense of familiarity. It was as if he could hear the child's tender voice calling out "Father." It was as if he could hear the child crying softly, "Father, Nianma wants mother." Although Shinjiuli had heard about the child from Ning Xuema many times, they had never met, so they did not have a deep relationship. Who would have special feelings for a child they heard about in the future? Not to mention Shinjiuli, who had always been indifferent to others. However, when he saw the painting now, his heart was hit hard, as if he had really doted on the child. After Ning Xuema finished the painting, she held it in front of him as if it was a treasure. "Master, look, this is our son. Isn't he very cute? In fact, he is 100 times cuter than my painting." She was very close to him, and the faint fragrance of her body went into his nose, making him have a desire to hug her again. "Master, such a cute child. You can't bear to let him disappear or be bullied for no reason, right?" Ning Xuema began to lead the conversation in that direction. Shinjiuli did not speak. He knew what Ning Xuema meant. She was still anxious to go back to save her son. However, when he was studying the soul-locking spell, he did not think of solving it at all, so he did not leave a way out. Now that he thought about it, there was basically no solution. Even if he could figure it out, it was not something that could be done in a few days. Although Ning Xuema did not dare to say a lot of things because of the heavenly law's warning, he had already deduced most of it from what he heard. In all likelihood, Luo Jiuqin took advantage of his absence to coerce the mother and son. After all, Shinjiuli had been fighting with Luo Jiuqin for many years, so he was very clear about his kung fu. He was only a little weaker than him. Ning Xuema and the 8 mythological beasts were no match for him, not to mention that she had little Nianma by her side. Presumably, she was in a terrible situation over there, and when she crossed over, it was the most dangerous time. Originally, compared to the era of Ning Xuema, it was 50,000 years later. Then it shouldn't be too late for her to delay, but she was in such a hurry. It was obviously abnormal. She even mumbled the word, "time." Could it be that the time on both sides was actually synchronized? Although this conjecture was somewhat inconceivable and sounded unreasonable, a person who originally lived 50,000 years in the future suddenly came to 50,000 years in the past was also unreasonable, but it really happened. She even said that she would return after making the necessary arrangements. Judging from all these signs, the time on both sides was indeed synchronized. At least for Xuema, it was synchronized. Shinjiuli took the painting and gently stroked the brows and eyes of the boy in the painting with his fingertips. It was as if he could hear the boy's soft voice again, and something in his heart seemed to melt slightly. She is indeed cute. He made an objective evaluation and began to think about the next step. Xuema had once said that Fantian Palace had a new master, which meant that Luo Jiuqin had already entered Fantian Palace. Before a secondary god obtained the qualification of the master god, there were many places in Fantian Palace that he could not enter without the permission of the master god. There were only a few places that he could live in. Xuema especially hated the waterside pavilion, so it seemed that Luo Jiuqin was more likely to live in the waterside pavilion. Perhaps he could start from these places to protect his wife and son. Ning Xuema had no idea what Shinjiuli was thinking about. Her gaze fell on the painting as if she could see her son's cute little face. Chapter 2034. What was Nianma doing now? 50,000 years later. Inside Mo Palace. All the demonic weapons were unsheathed, and their bows were strung. Everyone looked serious and the atmosphere was tense. Outside Mo Palace, people from the celestial world, the human world, and the beast world had gathered and surrounded the entire palace. "Your Majesty, Mo Palace is heavily guarded. The 8 mythological beasts have used an ancient secret technique to completely cover Mo Palace. Our people can't break in for the time being." A soldier rushed to report to the Celestial Emperor, who was personally supervising the battle. The Celestial Emperor's face was gloomy. "Continue to attack. Do it at all costs." "Yes, Your Majesty." The general who led the soldiers turned around to make arrangements. The Celestial Emperor looked at Mo Palace in front of him, which seemed to be shrouded in waves. He slowly clenched his fists. A day ago, the celestial prison in the celestial world was raided, and the prisoners were taken away by the people from the devil world overnight. When the Celestial Emperor received the news, the celestial prison was in a mess. The guards were killed, and the floor of the prison was almost stained with blood. After asking a survivor, the Celestial Emperor found out that General Himu of the devil world led the 8 mythological beasts to save their devil lord in the middle of the night. However, they found their devil lord dead in the celestial prison. The 8 mythological beasts went crazy. They could have left secretly, but they came out with the body of their devil lord. Although the celestial generals guarding the celestial prison were not weak, they were obviously no match for the 8 mythological beasts. Their flesh and blood splattered everywhere. Wherever the 8 mythological beasts went, it was a bloody purgatory. The survivor did not survive because of his strong kung fu. The 8 mythological beasts deliberately asked him to spread the message to the celestial emperor and others. The 8 mythological beasts said, "If our devil lord can come back to life, it will be fine. If not, we will kill everyone in the 6 worlds to avenge her." After the survivor passed the message to the celestial emperor, the celestial emperor was so angry that his face turned green. His sister's death had not been properly resolved, and now there was a new debt. Yes, he did not have a deep relationship with his sister, but her death was a great humiliation to him as the celestial emperor. Celestial the Arch immediately contacted Luo Jiuchen, who was far away in Fantian Palace. He didn't expect that the voice transmission talisman would connect at first, but the voice transmission talisman was extremely noisy, and he couldn't hear what the other party was saying. Later on he simply couldn't get through. The Celestial the Arch tried to contact him several times but to no avail. He knew that he could not count on him for the time being. Fortunately, the Celestial Emperor knew a little about the martial arts of the devils in Mo Palace. Their overall combat level was not as good as that of the Celestial World. As long as the Devil Lord did not wake up, the soldiers of the Celestial World would be able to beat the crap out of those devils in Mo Palace. The Devil Lord had snatched the Devil Realm's territory from the Immortal Realm, and the Celestial Emperor had always wanted to snatch it back. If the Devil Lord was still alive, he wouldn't dare to act rashly. But didn't the Devil Lord die in the heavenly prison? Since the Devil Lord was already dead, the Mo Palace was like a group of dragons without a leader. They were nothing more than a pile of loose sand. He could take advantage of this opportunity to reclaim his lost territory. The only thing that troubled him was the 8 divine beasts. One divine beast could fight against 100,000 celestial soldiers, let alone 8 of them. Thus, the Celestial Emperor thought for a while and contacted the kings of the beast realm and the human realm. These 2 realms did not get along well with the devil realm, and at this time they also wanted a share of the pie. Moreover, the 8 divine beasts breaking into the heavenly prison gave them a very good reason to send troops. Thus, the 3 realms jointly sent troops and aggressively came to Mo Palace to demand an explanation. They said that they wanted an explanation, but in fact they were attacking. Chapter 2035. They claimed to be asking for an explanation, but in fact they were attacking. Although Mo Palace was big enough, there were not enough devils in it. The Celestial Emperor thought it would be easy to attack Mo Palace, but he did not expect that the 8 mythological beasts would use magic to protect the entire Mo Palace. The outside of Mo Palace seemed to be covered with a layer of mist. Countless powerful immortals used all kinds of methods to break it, but they could not even make a crack. This scene was very similar to the time when Fantian Palace was sealed. No one could break in. The Celestial Emperor, the Human Emperor, and the Beast King had each sent their most powerful subordinates, but it was still in vain. During this period, the Celestial Emperor used the directed audio spell to contact Luo Jiuchen several times, but he still could not reach him. He did not know where the future Master of Heaven and Earth had gone. Otherwise, with Luo Jiuchen's ability, it would be easy for him to break in. In Mo Palace, Ning Xuema's body was placed in the side hall where Shinjiuli used to live. Mother? Little Nianma moved a stool to sit in front of the bed. His little hand held Ning Xuema's hand, and he felt a little uneasy. Although this was not the first time his mother was in such a situation, and his mother had even told him that if this happened again, he should obediently guard her body. As long as her body was not destroyed, she would be able to come back. However, little Nianma intuitively felt that his mother's coma this time was different from the previous times. Although his mother was not breathing and heartbeat before, her hands and skin were slightly warm. It was not as cold as this time. The coldness was like that of a dead person. Every time little Nianma held her hand, he could not help but shiver. He desperately used his little hand to warm her hand, trying to warm her hand. Mother, will you come back? You won't leave me, right? Nianma now had a certain level of power. When he used his power, even if he held a piece of ice in his hand, it could melt in an instant. Therefore, when he held Ning Xuema's hand, it became warm. However, when he let go for a moment, her hand became cold again. This made Shin Nianma very uncertain. The most important thing was that his mother had died in the prison. When she was brought back, there was blood all over her body. Especially her wrists, a layer of skin had been scraped off by the iron chains. It looked like a bloody mess, which frightened him. Little Nianma used to apply the best ointment that his father had given him on his mother. When she was unconscious, the wounds on her body would slowly recover after applying the ointment. But this time the medicine had been applied for a day, but her wound was still the same. Not only did it not show any signs of improvement, the color had even turned black. It looked even more shocking. Mother's sleep, this time was really different. It was as if he was really dead. As time went by, little Nianma became more and more anxious. He thought for a moment, then ran out of the hall and rushed into the flower bed to look for the little lotus. His mother had said that this little lotus would be a miracle. When it blossoms, it might bring about a miracle. He did not want any miracle now. He only wanted his mother to wake up. Even if it was just to open her eyes and look at him, he wanted to know that she could still be alive. Before his mother left, she had asked him to give a drop of blood to the little lotus every day. He had done it. The little lotus looked quite reassuring. It would grow a little bit almost every day. In the past few days, it had already grown an inch above the ground. Chapter 2036. Shen Yinma used to feed it and talk to it every day. However, ever since his mother was rescued, he had been so focused on his mother that he did not drop his blood on little He for 2 days. Little Nianma quickly found little He, and his heart skipped a beat. It had only been 2 days, but the little He had not seen it for a long time. The 5 small leaves were drooping and yellowed. It was only half an inch tall. It looked like it was going to die at any time. It seemed that a gust of wind could blow it away. It was the first time Shen Yinma saw little He with such symptoms. He was shocked. While blaming himself for his negligence, he quickly dropped a drop of blood on the little He. Originally, after he dripped a drop of blood on her, Xiao He would immediately swallow the blood. Soon she would be as lively as a dragon and as lively as a tiger. Her leaves would be so tender that water would be squeezed out. However, it did not work this time. The little He was still dying. The blood was not absorbed by the leaves at all. Instead, it slowly slid to the ground. Shen Yinma was stunned. He knew better than anyone else how much his mother treasured little He. If little He died like this, his mother would be heartbroken when she woke up and saw it. His mother had not woken up yet, and little He was going to die. Shen Yinma was helpless when he saw little He. He could not help but drop a few more drops of blood on little He, but it did not work at all. Shen Yinma wanted to come to little He for a miracle, but he was shocked. He squatted there and did not know what to do. After thinking for a while, he stood up and ran back to the house. "Mother, your most precious little He is dying. Can you get up and take a look at it?" Nianma is scared. Little Nianma rushed to the bed and held Ning Xuema's hand. He begged with tears in his eyes. The person on the bed did not respond, and her hand was even colder. Shen Yinma held her hand as if he was holding an ice cube. He stared blankly for a moment before he hurriedly circulated his qi to warm her up. But in the process of circulating his qi, he discovered something even more terrifying. His mother's arm was a little stiff. His little heart almost jumped out of his chest. This had never happened before. Only the body of a dead person would slowly stiffen. It was an illusion. It must be an illusion. Little Nianma panicked and quickly moved her wrist and elbow joints. Little Nianma's eyes were already filled with tears when he tried to move his elbow. It wasn't an illusion. His mother's elbow was really stiff and he was having a hard time shaking it. "Mother! Mother, don't scare me. Mother, you have to warm up, don't be so cold." He covered Ning Xuema with 3 to 4 layers of thick quilts. Then he snuggled into her arms and said, "Mother, don't leave Nianma behind. He is waiting for you to come back." His tears soaked Ning Xuema's clothes. His whole body clung to her like an octopus, trying to warm her with his body temperature. Another burst of battle cries came from outside, and the barrier jointly set up by the 8 mythological beasts shook slightly under the impact of countless magical weapons. Little Nianma could also feel the tremors in the depths of the palace. His eyes were red. Those bastards. Even after killing his mother, he still wouldn't give up. He even came to Mo Palace to bully him. He was going to fight it out with them. He jumped out of the bed and ran outside. His short legs were strong and he was the son of the Devil King. None of the ordinary subordinates in Mo Palace dared to stop him. They watched him run in the direction of the gate. Chapter 2037. Fortunately, he was stopped by General Manager He Mu at the gate. "Young master, where are you going?" "I am going to fight with them. I want them to compensate my parents." Little Nianma's whole body was trembling. General Manager He Mu's expression changed slightly. The Devil Master is not back yet? General Manager He Mu knew about Ning Xuema's soul leaving her body. Therefore, he still had a lot of hope that the Devil Master would wake up in time when Ning Xuema was rescued. As long as the Devil Master woke up, this crisis could be resolved. Now that the three realms were attacking fiercely, the wizardry barrier outside the Mo Palace seemed to be unbreakable, but it would not last long. The 8 mythological beasts could not hold on any longer. Even if the 8 mythological beasts could hold on and prevent all the enemies from attacking, there were so many people in the Mo Palace. They needed to eat and there was not much food left in the Mo Palace. At most they could only last for 4 or 5 more days. They were besieged and could not go out to buy food. Once they ran out of food, the entire Mo Palace would collapse. At that time, Mo Palace's power would truly be gone. It was not a big deal to lose their territory, but the entire Devil Kingdom would be in a bloodbath. It could be said that the Devil Master's life was now related to the rise and fall of the entire Devil Kingdom. General Manager He Mu could not help but be nervous. He pulled little Nianma to a quiet place and carefully asked about the specific situation of the Devil Master. He then personally went to the side hall to take a look and frowned. It seemed that he had to prepare for the worst. The Mo Palace could be abandoned, and all the devils in the Mo Palace could fight to the death, but the Devil Master's bloodline must be preserved. If the Devil Master could not be resurrected, then the Devil Master's son was the key to the entire Devil Kingdom's prosperity. Young Master, you must not be impulsive at this time. Where there is life there is hope. You should go back and guard the Devil Master. Maybe. The Devil Master has always been able to create miracles. Maybe she can wake up. As long as she wakes up, we will be saved, General Manager He Mu said to little Nianma. How can they be so shameless? They killed my mother and still dare to attack us. Little Nianma clenched his fists tightly. Father and mother have done so much to protect the 6 realms. They even sacrificed their lives. Shouldn't they be grateful? Head Steward He Mu sighed. In this world, everything was either black or white. Once a conflict of interest was involved, who would care whether or not you were indebted? It was the same between nations and the 6 realms. The principle was too profound for Head Butler He Mu to explain to little Nianma at the moment. He could only wait for little Nianma to understand it on his own when he grew up. General Manager He Mu comforted little Nianma and asked him to continue to guard the great devil's body. He Mu himself walked out with large strides. He needed to make proper arrangements and plans. As a last resort, he would arrange for the 8 mythological beasts to escort little Nianma out of Mo Palace and find a safe place to hide. He would then fight with the devils to buy time for the young master to escape. He raised his head to look at the sky. The sun had already set in the west. The sky was slightly red, and the clouds spread out in the sky like blood. Was this a sign of a huge battle? Mother! A mournful cry sounded in her ears, causing Ning Xuema to suddenly shiver. Be careful. Shen Jiuli grabbed her, who almost stepped into the trap. What happened to you? Ning Xuema's face was slightly pale. I think I heard little Nianma calling me. Her heart was as tense as if it was scalded. Chapter 2038. After breakfast this morning, Shen Jiuli took her out to set up the array in Fantian Palace. All the passages leading to the waterside pavilion were set up, and each array was different. Because Ning Xuema was also quite proficient in arrays and had some strange ideas, she helped Shen Jiuli from time to time. Almost all the arrays were the crystallization of their wisdom. Ning Xuema was quite cheerful at the beginning, but later she didn't know why she was distracted from time to time. Just now she almost stepped into her own trap. Shen Jiuli hugged her in his arms. Xuema, you miss him too much. Maybe, but she was panicking. As time went by, her heart became more and more panicked. She opened her mouth, but before she could say anything, Shen Jiuli said first, "This afternoon I will start to study how to solve the soul-locking spell. I will try to send you back." He made a promise to her. Ning Xuema breathed a sigh of relief, knowing that he would keep his promise. She was still worried about his health. What about your injuries? This morning, after eating breakfast, Ning Xuema originally wanted to treat his injuries, but was dragged out by him without any explanation to set up a trap. She didn't know who he wanted to trap. Shen Jiuli shook his head slightly. It's okay. After his injuries were mostly healed, most of his power was restored. Naturally, it was much faster for him to heal himself. In addition, with the medicine he made himself, his injuries were much better in the morning. He was basically fine. Ning Xuema knew that he was the kind of person who liked to bear pain alone, so she didn't ask him again. Instead, she directly picked up his wrist and felt his pulse. Shinjuli let her hold his hand, and there was a glimmer in his eyes. Ning Xuema finally put down his hand and sighed. God is really a god. His recovery ability is also extraordinary. If she suffered an injury like his, she would probably have to lie in bed for a few days. If he was willing to go into seclusion to research how to break the soul-locking curse, then he would have succeeded halfway. Yes, she was indeed very anxious. She couldn't wait to transmigrate back. However, things had already developed to this point. There was no point in being anxious. She could only wait. During this period of time when he was in seclusion, she also happened to cultivate her medicinal skills. She found that her cultivation here was also very useful. If he could cultivate his alchemy skills to level 9 during this period of time, that would be even better. By the way, Guru, who is this mechanism targeting? Now that there were only the two of them in the palace, no one else could enter. Ning Xuema felt that it was unnecessary for the Almighty to set up so many traps in her house. Shinjuli had just finished setting up another mechanism. His voice was faint as he said, "Didn't you say that this Fantian palace would be occupied by others one day? I'll add some ingredients in advance." Ning Xuemo recalled the scenery she saw in Mo Palace 50,000 years later. It seemed that there were no such mechanisms. Could it be that the Almighty was going to tear it down again? No. Ever since she transmigrated, this space-time seemed to be a bit strange. The flow of time on both sides seemed to be the same. In other words, however many days she stayed here, the same amount of time would pass on the other side. If the time on both sides was synchronized, then the person living in Fantian Palace on the other side was Luo Jiuchen. Was the Almighty setting up a trap for Luo Jiuchen? She silently calculated the time and was suddenly shocked. When she and Shinjuli were renovating the waterside pavilion, it should be early in the morning on the other side. Chapter 2039. When she and Shinjuli were renovating the waterside pavilion, it should be early in the morning there. If there was no accident, Luo Jiuchen should be resting in the waterside pavilion. Then he fell asleep in the middle of the night and was doused with a few buckets of cold water. Then he fell into the array. Ning Xuema knew a thing or two about the array that Shinjuli had set up. She knew that it was definitely unpredictable. If Shinjuli hadn't explained it to her in advance, it would have taken her a whole day to break out, even if she was an expert in arrays. How much did Luo Jiuchen know about arrays? Ning Xuema talked about Luo Jiuchen with Shinjuli while setting up arrays with him. She wanted to know more about him. Only by knowing yourself and your enemy can you win 100 battles. From Shinjuli she learned some of Luo Jiuchen's weaknesses. For example, he was fond of wine and was suspicious. He wasn't good at arrays. However, because he had fought with Shinjuli many times, Shinjuli didn't want to fight with him. When Luo Jiuchen kept pestering him, he used arrays to trap him for a while. In this way, Luo Jiuchen's attainments in arrays were remarkable. Ning Xuema pondered for a moment and finally understood why the Almighty wanted her to set up arrays with him. Luo Jiuchen was already familiar with Shinjuli's array style, so it was easier for him to break it. However, he wasn't familiar with hers. Once she added in her array style, it would take Luo Jiuchen twice or several times longer to break out. Understanding this, Ning Xuema put more effort into setting up arrays. She wanted to set up a large array in the whole Fantian Palace so that Luo Jiuchen couldn't escape. Even if he escaped, he wouldn't want to go back to Fantian Palace. Shinjuli told her that there were many places that didn't need to be set up because Luo Jiuchen wasn't qualified to enter at all. The cooperation between the two went very smoothly this time. Shinjuli really didn't expect that she would be so proficient in arrays. He couldn't help but sigh. "Xuema, what have you experienced in the past 50,000 years? Ning Xuema's eyes flashed and she smiled. "You can just take it that I've been reborn. No one could not change the hardships of 3 lifetimes. Shinjuli raised his hand and rubbed her hair. "I like your change." He looked at the sky with a hint of longing in his eyes. "Perhaps I should follow you to your world to take a look." Ning Xuema's heart skipped a beat. She was naturally very willing to take him back, but was it that easy? In the blink of an eye, another 3 days passed. During these 3 days the two of them did their own things. Shinjuli went to study spells, while Ning Xuema locked herself in the medicine refining room to refine medicine. The two of them didn't meet for the past 3 days. Because the thing Shinjuli wanted to research this time was very high-end, he had to concentrate all his energy and could not allow any external interference. It was almost like he was in seclusion. He even turned off the voice-transmitting spell to communicate with the outside world. Ning Xuema was also eager to improve her refining level. so she almost didn't leave the medicine refining room for the past 3 days. She had almost recovered her power, so it didn't matter that she didn't need to eat, so she was more focused. When a person was concentrating on something, time would pass very quickly. A faint blue light flashed in the medicine refining furnace, and the lid opened automatically. There was a furnace of medicine lying inside. Several pills flickering with green light entered Ning Xuema's line of sight. 9th grade medicine. Ning Xuema's hands trembled slightly. She made it. She had refined the 9th grade medicine that only 9th grade alchemists could refine. She didn't care that her hands were hot. She took out the pills and ran out, eager to share this joy with the Almighty. Chapter 2040. Bang! She bumped her head into someone. One of them held her up. Why are you so careless? She rubbed her sore nose and looked up. Great God! This was really a case of speaking of the devil. She smiled and showed him the pill in her hand as if she was presenting a treasure. Come take a look. What is this? Shinjuli looked at the pill rolling in her palm and then looked at her dusty little face. He raised his hand and wiped the dust off her face with his sleeve. Xuema is really the best. You can actually refine a 9th grade medicine so quickly. Ning Xuema was immensely proud of herself. Of course. I'm the devil master. Naturally, I'm the smartest. Shinjuli took advantage of the opportunity to grab her waist and walk out with her. Let's go and get some fresh air. Look at you, you're like a little devil. The lake rippled slightly, and the lake water gently lapped against the shore. Above the lake there was a colorful light that changed. It was magnificent. On the grassy ground beside the lake, there were several pots lined up in a row. Shinjuli had caught a fish at some point and started to make an all-fish feast. Ning Xuema wanted to help him as well. However, Shinjuli asked her to sit down on a stone bench and wait for the food to start. Ning Xuema was the type of person who would only get busier the more she tried to help him. Shinjuli always did things smoothly and elegantly. He could even make a meal full of immortality. He was probably the only one in the world who could do this. Ning Xuema felt that Shinjuli seemed to have something on his mind. He looked a bit like he was making a last supper. But this sentence was so inauspicious. Ning Xuema automatically dismissed this thought. The all-fish feast that Shinjuli made was very sumptuous. Ning Xuema ate very contentedly. She actually wanted to ask the great god how his research on the soul-unlocking curse was going. She didn't know why she didn't want to ask. If she asked, it would be like rushing him. It was better not to ask. He would naturally tell her if he managed to figure it out. To be honest, Ning Xuema seemed to have heard little Nianma's cries a few times during the 3 days when she was exhausted. The cries were getting louder and louder each time. In the end, it sounded like he was crying out loud. It made her heart feel as if it had been fiercely grasped, and she was startled with cold sweat all over her body. This time, the fish was exceptionally delicious, but Shinjuli didn't eat much. He only picked up a few pieces to accompany her. Although the two of them were both in the Fantian Palace, they hadn't seen each other for 3 days. Now that they were reunited, they couldn't help but sit together. They were originally sitting side by side, but as they sat there, Ning Xuema was unknowingly held in his arms. Her petite body fit perfectly in his embrace. Ning Xuema felt that the Almighty was especially homely and warm today. Yes, it was warmth. When she sat in his arms, Ning Xuema only felt a warm current gently rippling in her heart. In her heart, she actually had the idea to stay and accompany him forever. If she traveled back in time, she was afraid that she would have to face a bloody storm. She was doing all kinds of efforts for the return of Shinjuli over there. However, after all, she was not 100% sure that she would succeed. What if the great god over there couldn't be reborn? Her life was still a bleak one. But if she didn't go back, what about little Nianma? Alright, until now the memory of her 2 lives had not disappeared. Did it mean that history had not changed? It had been more than 20 days since the substitute was sent to the Devil Kingdom to suffer. According to Mother Earth, little Xuema should have already become a devil at this moment. She should have begun to kill in the Devil Kingdom. Perhaps she had already killed her way to the underworld. Chapter 2041. However, it was the substitute who was suffering now. She shouldn't have the ability to kill everyone, right? Almighty, what did you make of the substitute? Does she have a soul and can feel pain? Ning Xuema finally asked the question that she had neglected for a long time. Shinjuli paused and looked at her. Why do you ask this? He had been with Ning Xuema for the past few days and was constantly bothered by her questions. He had almost forgotten about that woman. At that time, in order to punish Miao Fan for scheming against Xuema, He simply used a very special spell to turn her into Shuema's appearance. No matter what method she used, she couldn't recover within a month. If Shuema had to bear any punishment because of this, let this woman bear it. He also knew that Luo Jiuchen wanted to use Shuema to get Shuema. So when it was really critical, Luo Jiuchen would save her. He wouldn't let her suffer any irreparable losses. Even if Luo Jiuchen found that he had been schemed against, he wouldn't do anything to Miao Fan. After all, they were partners, so let them swallow the bitter fruit themselves. Those who dared to scheme against his people had to pay the corresponding price. At the moment when the truth was revealed, he believed that the expressions of those two people would be very wonderful. Because he had roughly guessed the consequences, Shinjiuli didn't take this matter to heart. Now that Ning Shuema mentioned it, he remembered. This matter had already passed and he didn't want to mention it again, so he vaguely responded and changed the topic. Because he finally mentioned a topic that interested Ning Shuema the most. Shuema, I have studied the soul unlocking spell. Sure enough, this topic successfully attracted Ning Shuema's full attention. Her eyes immediately brightened. Really? Then quickly. Shinjiuli pressed a finger on her lips and his eyes were deep. Stay with me for a while? Ning Shuema immediately understood what he meant. He was reluctant to part with her and wanted to keep her for a while. No wonder he would make this all-fish feast. Ning Shuema knew that as long as Shinjiuli removed the soul-locking curse for her, she would be able to leave at any time. After leaving this time, he didn't know when he would be able to transmigrate back. He also didn't know if they would have the chance to meet again. She looked up at the side of his face and saw that his face was slightly pale. Although his eyes were not bloodshot, she could see that he was tired. In these 3 days he probably didn't rest at all, right? Her heart was filled with soft emotions. She raised her hand to hug his neck and gently kissed his chin. Okay. Almighty, after I go back this time, I'll settle our son properly. I'll try to come back again. I won't be away for too long. Ning Shuema promised in his arms. Shinjiuli smiled. Alright, I'll wait for you. Do you want me to play a song to send you off? Ning Shuema's eyes lit up. Sure. She was in high spirits. I can dance too. Do you want me to dance a song for you to see? I couldn't ask for more. Shinjiuli chuckled. Let me see how many skills you have that I don't know. I have a lot of skills. They are the type of treasures that you can't dig out. You'll know later. Ning Shuema was proud. Shinjiuli took out a guqin from nowhere. He casually plucked the strings. Then I'll wait and see. What song do you want to dance? Ning Shuema thought for a while. Pipa? Chapter 2042. Shinjiuli expressed that he had never heard of it. Finally, the omnipotent Almighty was stumped for once. Ning Shuema patted his shoulder and gestured for him to get up. I'll show you once. Shinjiuli raised his eyebrows. Sure enough, he made way for her. Ning Shuema began to play. It was Yang Jiao's famous song, Pipa Song. It was a little sad, a little vicissitudes and had a faint ancient atmosphere. After the song ended, Ning Shuema looked up at Shinjiuli. Almighty, how was my performance? Shinjiuli nodded slightly. The song was good and the performance was good too. It would be even better if you could add lyrics. It was really not easy to get a compliment from the Almighty. Ning Shuema smiled and said, there are lyrics. When I dance later, I'll sing it for you. She couldn't wait to show all her talents in front of him. By the way, Almighty, I played it once. Do you remember it? Do you want me to play it again? Shinjiuli picked her up and sat in front of the guqin. He played the guqin with one hand. A string of notes flowed from his fingertips. He played the song that Ning Shuema had just played. It was not bad at all. The Almighty was indeed the Almighty. He really had some skills. Ning Shuema was finally relieved. She kissed him on the cheek. Perform well. Just as she was about to get up, she was wrapped in his arms. Then her whole body fell into his arms. His handsome face pressed down and he gave her a solid kiss. After a while, the two separated. Ning Shuema was panting. Shinjiuli said slowly, that's a good performance. Ning Shuema stared at him, but her eyes were watery and her lips were red. Shinjiuli's eyes deepened. He touched her lips gently with his finger. Are you still not satisfied? Then, how about something more substantial? Ning Shuema blushed. She naturally understood what Shinjiuli meant by more realistic. She quickly jumped up and said, I won't play with you anymore. Let's play the zither. If you play well, this lady will reward you. Shinjiuli's lips curled up slightly. He would definitely get his reward back. Rosy clouds slowly spread across the horizon, and the clouds looked like they were inlaid with gold. Ning Xuema stood there in a red dress. The style of the red dress was rather strange. It had narrow sleeves and a wide skirt. She was barefoot and there were silver bells jingling on her ankles. She was elegant and sexy but also seductive. She held the pipa in her arms and tilted her head to look at him. "Guru, do I look good?" Her appearance was obviously pure, but her movements were enchanting to the bone. The two types of charms strangely combined on her body had a special impact that made Shinjuli's mind tremble. He leisurely smiled and said, "Beautiful. Which one of the people that I like is ugly?" Ning Xuema smiled. She was actually not a vain person, and she did not care about how others looked at her. However, when she was in front of him, she could not help but act like a little girl. She just wanted to hear his praise. Her heart bloomed when she heard his praise. The sound of the zither rang out, and a string of notes flowed in the air. Ning Xuema began to dance to the sound of the zither, and at the same time she played the pipa. Her posture was as soft as cotton, but every movement was full of rhythm. As the music rose and fell, she was like a fire phoenix dancing there. After passing through the door, she began to sing. "The night is hazy, the palace walls are full of moonlight, the strings are broken, take care with tears in my eyes." The sound of singing, the sound of the zither, and the pipa combined organically to form a moving melody that reverberated on the grass. Her voice was like the sound of nature and her posture was like flying. Chapter 2043. Shinjuli had seen countless songs and dances in his life, but he felt that none of them could compare to hers. What shocked him even more was that he vaguely felt that he had seen her dance somewhere before. It made him feel as if a string had been plucked in his heart. It was slightly sour and painful. When he was slightly distracted, he almost played a wrong note. She looked over in surprise and her eyes were like water waves. Shinjuli came back to his senses. He gently plucked the strings with his fingertips, and the notes flowed out again. This time, there seemed to be light flowing out of his guqin, and the notes seemed to be able to go straight into the depths of the listener's heart. Ning Xuema was completely immersed in it. Her body seemed to be flying, and at the same time she played the pipa louder, hoping to be more harmonious with him. It was unknown where the petals came from, but they fluttered around Ning Xuema's body as she danced. Finally the song ended, but the sound was still lingering in the air. Ning Xuema stopped dancing, but the petals still revolved around her reluctantly. There was a little sweat on her forehead, but her eyes were surprisingly bright. She smiled and looked at Shinjuli, who was sitting not far away, and asked, "How was it?" Shinjuli waved at her. She ran over and twirled in front of him again. "Wasn't it very pleasing to the eye?" Shinjuli did not answer. Instead, he waved his sleeves and directly picked her up. In her low voice, he put her down on the soft cushion made of countless petals. His magnetic voice sounded in her ear, "Very good. I think I can take back my reward." It was a hearty pleasure. When Ning Xuema climbed up to the top of him, it was as if she saw a starry heaven. After an unknown amount of time, the two of them finally parted reluctantly. The sky was filled with stars like chess pieces, which decorated the blue sky. Ning Xuema sat in his arms, leaning on his chest, and looked at the stars with him. The feeling of snuggling up to him made people yearn for him. Ning Xuema knew that she should leave, but she was reluctant to do so. When you love someone, you want to be with them all the time. Even if they were separated for a short period of time, it would feel like forever. If she could bring little Nyenma here, she would rather not go back. She didn't care about her past life or who was the master of the world. She just wanted to be with him forever and ever. No matter how reluctant he was to part with her, they still had to part. Shinjuli held her hand and said, "You must come back." Ning Xuema nodded. She would come back. He would definitely come back. She wanted to respond, but her throat seemed to be choked. It was sour and astringent and she couldn't speak. Shinjuli closed his eyes slightly and sighed. "Xuema, I'll wait for you." He focused his mind, and spots of white light appeared on his fingertips and fell on Ning Xuema's body. A moment later, Ning Xuema shivered. Her body suddenly became lighter, as if something had escaped. She opened her eyes and found that she was floating in the air. Below her, the person in Shinjuli's arms was quickly shrinking. Her body had returned to the size of a 12 or 13 years old. Ning Xuema's heart raced, and her eyes widened in surprise. This time she successfully escaped from the body of little Xuema, but why did she not go back? What? Previously, when she left her body, she would go back immediately. Was it because she didn't say the forbidden language just now? Did she not trigger the mechanism to go back? Ning Xuema almost cried. She made up her mind and rushed down again. She wanted to possess little Shuema's body again so that she could communicate with the Almighty in the forbidden language. Chapter 2044. However, just as her body was about to hit little Shuema's body, she was stopped by an invisible wall. She did not succeed in possessing her body. Instead, she was bounced away. What happened? Why did little Shuema have a protective enchantment around her body? It seemed like the enchantment was targeted at her. Little Shuema's eyelashes trembled slightly and she opened her eyes. When she saw the person who was holding her, her eyes lit up instantly. Jiao Li. Her voice was crisp and tender, like a string of silver bells ringing. Shunjuli looked at her with a complicated gaze. He put her down and rubbed her head. You're awake? Little Shuema blinked her eyes. Jiao Li, you saved me, right? I'm not very good at swimming. Alright, why did you jump into the lake to wash the fish? Her memory was still stuck in the scene where she drowned in order to save Shunjuli who had fallen into the water. Shunjuli looked up at the sky as if he was looking for something, but also as if he had just lost something. Little Shuema pulled his sleeve. Jiao Li, what's wrong with you? What are you looking for? Shunjuli shook his head slightly. Nothing. Ning Shuema desperately swayed in front of him. Guru, I haven't gone back yet. Try to let me possess your body again. However, Shunjuli could not hear what she said at all. Naturally, he could not see her disheveled figure in the wind. Ning Shuema anxiously walked in circles in the air. The feeling of not being able to possess a body and not being able to go back was really terrible. She was desperately trying to think of a way when a few big words flashed in her mind. The heavenly axiom is not to be trifled with. Those few big words were shining in her mind, and there were thousands of auspicious auras. Ning Shuema's fingers suddenly tightened. The heavenly axiom. When the heavenly axiom gave her a warning, the words that appeared in her mind were the same. Even the size of the words were the same. Damn, so this was the heavenly axiom's revenge. So ruthless. So ruthless. How ruthless. It was no wonder that there was no more movement after the rain had passed. She thought that the heavenly axiom's revenge had a time limit, but she did not expect it to be waiting for her here. She lowered her eyes and did not react for a moment. Those who insult the heavenly Tao must be punished. A line of words appeared in his mind again, filled with a sense of complacency. The heavenly Tao is fair and people must respect it. The heavens are unfair so people must stay away from it. Ning Shuema faintly replied. She did not go berserk because of this. Because she knew that it was useless to go berserk at this moment. Only by calming down could she find a way to get out of this predicament. The heavenly axiom in Ning Shuema's mind probably didn't expect her to be so calm. For a while it didn't flood Ning Shuema's mind. Ning Shuema lowered her eyes to look at the white stone on the peak. Just now, when the word heavenly law flashed in her mind, her soul had already arrived at the peak and faced the stone. The corners of Ning Shuema's lips curled up slightly. The heavenly Tao should be impartial. It is the heavenly Tao that embraces all things and treats the world well. What's the point of bickering with a girl? The rock was speechless. It did not expect this girl to still refuse to give in at this time. After a while, it flooded Ning Shuema's mind again. The heavenly Tao only protects the safety of the 6 realms. The 4 seas must respect it. You have insulted the heavenly Tao, so you must be punished. I accept the punishment. Ning Shuema was also straightforward. How do I punish you? Loudly admit your mistakes to me and kowtow 3 times. This is the condition for you to send me back to my original world? This is only the condition for me to forgive you. Ning Shuema was silent for a moment, then slowly said, since it is the heavenly Tao, it will not lie. You can't actually send me back, right? Chapter 2045. Heavenly Tao. Ning Shuema smirked. I'm a variable in your world, right? Heavenly Tao. If you admit your mistake, I'll think of a way. In other words, it had no other choice now. I'll admit my mistake when you think of a way. Ning Shuema floated down and didn't look at the heavenly Tao stone again. It was a pity that the heavenly Tao stone was just a stone. Otherwise, it would definitely fly into a rage behind Ning Shuema. The runes on its body spun like crazy, showing how high its rage points were. It was clearly the supreme being, so why couldn't anyone show it any true respect? The guardian was like this, and this strange little girl was also like this. The heavenly Tao stone was so angry. The symbols on its body suddenly paused as it thought of an extremely important question. The heavenly Tao stone looked like an extremely badass stone that controlled all living beings in the 6 realms. It could be said to be a supreme being, but the only one who could communicate with it was the guardian. No matter how powerful other people were, they couldn't get a single word from it. How could that little girl communicate with it so freely? This didn't make sense. The heavenly Tao stone seemed to have just thought of this question, and a series of question marks flashed across its body. Ning Xuemo realized that after she transmigrated, she could walk at the same pace as little Xuema if she stayed by her side. However, once she was a few feet away from her, her speed would become extremely slow. The heavenly Tao stone didn't expend much effort to lift her up, but she was going down this mountain at a speed that could only be described as tearful. She was like a piece of paper being blown up by the wind, drifting slowly through the air. She was drifting so slowly that she wanted to curse. Only when she saw little Xuema's figure did she suddenly increase her speed. With a schwa sound, she flew over and hovered directly above little Xuema, and in just a short while the situation had changed greatly. Shen Jiuli opened his voice transmission talisman, which had been closed for several days, and several cries for help immediately sounded. His voice transmission talisman had the ability to leave messages, so Ning Xuema heard the most important thing. The heavenly monarch was asking for help. The netherworld monarch was asking for help. Human king was asking for help. Even the demon king was asking for help. Ning Xuema's heart sank the moment she heard their cries for help. Devil Master Xuema had become a devil and was slaughtering everyone in the devil world. Blood flowed like rivers. Now she was leading an army to attack the netherworld. Everything was the same as what Ning Xuema had heard from Mother Earth. However, little Xuema had always been in Mo Palace. Who was the one who pretended to be her and killed everyone outside? Could it be the substitute? Even the substitute had become a spirit. The freshest message was from the Nether King. He was almost howling, "Supreme Divinity, save me." It was obvious that he was in danger. "I've always been here and I haven't gone on a killing spree. Is there something wrong with their brains?" Little Xuema sat on a rock at the side and clenched her small fists. "Which bastard dares to pretend to be me?" Shen Jiuli's face was as calm as water. He instructed little Xuema, "Xuema, wait here. Don't run around, I'll be back soon." Little Xuema naturally wanted to follow. "Jiuli, are you going to subdue that imposter? I want to go too. How dare he pretend to be me?" Shen Jiuli muttered to himself and nodded. "Okay." He waved his hand and put a silver mask on her face. "However, you have to wear this first." Chapter 2046. Little Xuema was puzzled and reached out to grab the mask. "Why do I have to wear this? It's not like I can't be seen. She wasn't the one who did the bad things. Good girl, I have my own plans. If you want to go with me, then be obedient." "All right." Little Xuema stopped grabbing the mask and flew up with Shinjiuli. Ning Xuema naturally hovered above little Xuema. She naturally understood Shinjiuli's intention. That imposter used the name of the Devil Lord to create chaos in the 6 realms. He brought her there to take the opportunity to clear her name. There was no need to say much. As long as they arrived at the location, he would let little Xuema reveal her true face. When the two Xuema confronted each other, everyone would naturally know that something was wrong. Naturally, the bad reputation of little Xuema would be cleared. In the future, she would be able to move freely in the 6 realms without being hunted down. As for putting on the mask for her in advance, he was afraid that he would have to explain it to others on the way. Shinjiuli always took the quickest route when doing things. He was too lazy to explain it to others. Fortunately, although little Xuema was confused, she knew that Shinjiuli wouldn't trick her. She didn't cause any trouble along the way, but she chattered a lot. After all, she had a lot of questions in her heart. Shinjiuli was a man of few words. Most of the time, he didn't seem to hear little Xuema's questions. When he encountered the key points, he would answer them in a few words. He was extremely concise. This made little Xuema a little unhappy. She always felt that she was using her hot face to stick to his cold, but later on she didn't talk much. She decided that it was better for her to investigate on the spot. Shinjiuli carried her as fast as lightning. Even if they met people along the way, the two of them had already whizzed past before they could see their faces clearly. "Xuema, when we get there, just do whatever I tell you to do. Don't make any decisions on your own, okay?" Shinjiuli reminded her as the underworld was right in front of them. Little Xuema frowned slightly. She always felt that Shinjiuli was treating her like a child, but she was no longer a child. She stiffly replied, "I know what I'm doing." When Shinjiuli saw her expression, he seemed to have guessed her dissatisfaction. He paused for a moment, stretched out his arms and pulled her into an embrace. His voice was slightly soft. Shuema, I'm doing this for your own good. Listen to me, okay? Little Shuema was very easy to coax. She immediately beamed with joy and nodded heavily. Okay. Ning Shuema watched from above. She didn't know what to feel. There was no need for her to be jealous. She would not be jealous of her past life. Her gaze fell on Shinjioli. Actually, his attitude towards little Shuema had changed, hadn't it? He used to be cold, indifferent, and stiff, but now he knew how to coax her. She touched her nose. Was it because she had transmigrated and changed him unknowingly? She couldn't help but smile. However, she soon couldn't smile anymore. After entering the underworld, everything they saw could only be described with one word: tragic. Broken limbs and body parts were everywhere. Blood dyed the mountains and rivers red. The air was filled with a thick smell of blood. It was 100 times crueler than an ancient battlefield. In the far north there was a red cloud shrouding them. Ning Shuema's heart skipped a beat. She could actually feel the extremely cold and fierce aura of the red cloud from so far away. If there were no accidents, the substitute should be there. Shinjioli and Luo Bingqian suddenly sped up. There was a blood-red river. The water was like blood and huge waves were set off. There were faint cries of ghosts and howls of wolves in the huge waves. Chapter 2047. On both sides of the river, the two armies were facing each other. On one side of the river were the reinforcements of the celestial world, while on the other side were the troops of the devil world. Ning Shuema finally saw the substitute again, and his heart skipped a beat. That substitute's appearance was still that of little Shuema's, but her eyebrows were dyed with a thick ink-like evil aura. Her crimson robe fluttered violently in the wind as if it was spilled fresh blood. Above her head, there was a strange, baleful and threatening red cloud. Inside the cloud, it rolled and rolled as if ghosts were howling. Just like what Ning Shuema learned from Mother Earth, when Shinjioli arrived, the substitute was using the sword in her hand to create King Ming. King Ming couldn't be seen in his original appearance anymore. His fingers were gone, his nose was gone, his eyes were dug out, and more than half of his skin was peeled off. He couldn't be seen as a human anymore. He let out a tragic whimper, but his tongue seemed to have been cut off. The sound he made was like the roar of a wild beast. The substitute was obviously using King Ming to force all the living beings of the underworld to submit. Her laughter was shrill. Those who obey me will live, and those who defy me will die. If you don't surrender and let me order you around, this person will be your example. Behind her, the dark mass of devil soldiers roared proudly with her to strengthen her momentum. The immortal soldiers and generals who came to support on the other side were probably frightened by this scene, and their faces turned pale. Even Celestial Emperor's expression changed. Ning Shuema looked at Celestial Emperor's face and sighed. This Celestial Emperor wasn't the Celestial Emperor from 50,000 years later. It seemed like the gears of fate were still turning, and everything was moving according to the fixed trajectory. That double placed a pair of snow-white hands on the Netherworld King's head and smiled. Netherworld King, you seem to have looked down on me before. Now, be a ghost in my evil cloud array. Red light came out from her palms. Stop. With a clear shout, a white shadow flashed over. A palm print quickly formed in the air and hit the substitute's chest. The substitute was caught off guard. With a muffled groan, his body flew out. Almost at the same time, the Nether King's battered body was lifted up by an invisible force. He flew across the river and landed among the remaining Netherworld soldiers. Divine Lord. Oh, it's the Supreme Divinity. He's finally here. Supreme Divinity, the Devil Master suddenly turned demonic and massacred the 6 realms. Supreme Divinity, the Devil Lord has gone mad. He has committed a heinous crime. The living beings of the 3 realms on the other side of the river cheered. Even the Celestial the Arch and the Yao Emperor heaved a sigh of relief. Shinjioli did not pay attention to the cheers of the crowd. His gaze fell on the Demon Master, who was sent flying by his palm. There was a complicated look in his eyes and his voice was cold. Miao Fan, you really dare to cause trouble. Ning Shuema, who was floating in the air, was stunned. Miao Fan. That substitute was actually Miao Fan? It turned out that Shinjioli had turned Miao Fan into little Shuema so that she could bear those sufferings for her. No wonder Shinjioli did not mention anything about Miao Fan. So that was the reason. However, this kind of artificial transformation technique could only last for a day. Furthermore, it could only change the person's appearance, but it could not change the person's aura. Many high-level demons recognized aura and not just appearance. This Miao Fan had been in the devil realm for more than 20 days. How could she still look like little Shuema? Those demons could not even recognize her. What did Shinjiuli do to Miao Fan? His words shocked everyone present. They all looked at Shinjiuli. Some of them asked in a low voice, while others expressed their surprise. Chapter 2048. Shinjiuli's words shocked everyone present. They looked at Shinjiuli one after another. Some whispered questions, some expressed surprise. The buzzing sounds were like boiling water. Facing the countless doubts around him, Shinjiuli didn't explain anything. He only did one thing, which was to pat little Shuema's shoulder. Shuema, show your true face and let them see. Little Shuema couldn't hold it in anymore. She immediately took off her mask and showed her true face. She said loudly, I am the Devil Master. She is a fake. Everyone was petrified. Two little Devil Masters appeared in the field. One was valiant and high-spirited, looking straightforward and straightforward. She was no different from the little Devil Master Shuema that everyone knew. She also stayed by Shinjiuli's side. The other one also had the appearance of Shuema, but she was full of hostility. Her every move was full of resentment and gloominess, which was poles apart from her usual temperament. Everyone looked at one and then looked at the other. It was almost clear who was the real one and who was the fake one. Ning Shuema crossed her arms and watched the show in the air. Along the way she had actually tried countless ways to transmigrate back, but they were all like clay oxen sinking into the sea. There was no effect at all. Of course, she also wanted to possess little Shuema's body, but there was an inexplicable barrier around little Shuema's body. She couldn't get in. Now she couldn't go up or down. She could only accept her fate and be a ghost here. Moreover, no one could see her as a ghost, not even the omnipotent Shinjiuli. She didn't know if it was because she was super powerful or because it was a prank by the god of travel. Ning Shuema's gaze fell on Miao Fan, and the corner of her mouth raised. Miao Fan had really shot herself in the foot this time. She originally wanted to harm little Shuema, but in the end, little Shuema suffered all the pain she deserved. This was truly retribution. It was just that he did not expect Miao Fan to also have some skills, to actually be able to create such a big wave. This surprised Ning Shuema. She rubbed her nose and pondered. It seemed that the trajectory of history hadn't changed much. The only difference was that the sinners had changed. The purple fiend should still happen, right? Miao Fan had also killed a lot of people. Even if little Shuema was possessed by the devil, she wouldn't be able to create such a tragic scene. Pits and valleys were filled with corpses. Wherever there was water, there was blood. Ning Shuema realized that she was extremely sensitive in her current state. She could see wisps of resentment swirling around the ground. However, no one on the scene noticed this. Everyone's eyes were focused on Miao Fan. Some people had already opened their mouths to question her. Naturally, they questioned her true identity. Is she really Fairy Miao Fan? That's impossible, right? She even killed Venerable Meng Tsang just now. That was her fiancé. Yes, Venerable Meng Tsang has always been good to her and she has always liked Venerable Meng Tsang. Just now, she tortured Venerable Meng Tsang to death. She actually skinned him alive. Ning Shuema narrowed her eyes. This Miao Fan had been tortured to the point of perversion. She didn't even recognize her own family anymore? As little Shuema did not have any memory of Miao Fan scheming against her, she was also confused and curious. She asked Shinjiuli who was beside her, Jiuli, how do you know she is Miao Fan? How did Miao Fan become like this? Shinjiuli did not speak. His sleeves were hanging down and he looked at Miao Fan expressionlessly. He did not pursue the victory. Chapter 2049. Miao Fan was seriously injured by Shinjiuli's palm and couldn't get up from the ground for a while. Unexpectedly, after the red cloud above her circled around her body, she jumped up as if she had been charged with electricity. Her eyes were blood red as she looked at Shinjiuli who was standing opposite her. Suddenly she raised her head and laughed, Shinjiuli, you finally came. Her throat was obviously damaged and her voice was hoarse and unpleasant. Miao Fan, you shouldn't have done this. Shinjiuli's fingers slowly clenched in his sleeves. Who forced me to do this? Who caused me to be in such a miserable state? Shinjiuli, it's you. You used a secret technique to turn me into her appearance and made me suffer. I was almost eaten alive by them. This is all thanks to you. Shinjiuli. Her voice was sharp and full of resentment. Shinjiuli's voice was indifferent. You did this to her. I just let you taste the consequences of your actions. Miao Fan. She also knew that she had smashed her own foot with a stone this time, but she didn't expect it to be so serious. She almost smashed her own foot. I didn't want to hurt her like this. I just wanted to drive her out of the Fanteon Palace so that she wouldn't bother you anymore and let her give up completely. Xinjiuli, I'm your sister, your biological sister. How can you be so cruel to me? Do you know what I suffered in the demon realm? No matter what you suffered, you deserved it. Xinjiuli's voice was cold. I have already repaid the kindness of your Water Lily clan. If you really thought of yourself as my sister, you shouldn't have made such a vicious plan with Luo Jiuqian to hurt her. If I didn't turn back in time and see through your conspiracy, the one who suffered today would be the innocent one. Miao Fan, how can someone like you call yourself my sister? Miao Fan. Xinjiuli was a man of few words. He did everything his own way. Even if he was misunderstood, he was too lazy to explain. She thought that Xinjiuli would not explain and wanted to take the opportunity to embarrass him in front of everyone. She thought that this divine lord was heartless and would even harm her own sister. Who would have thought? This way she would be even more embarrassed. She glared at Xinjiuli, almost thinking that he was possessed by something. Although the onlookers didn't know exactly what had happened, but listening to their conversation, they more or less understood what had happened, and despised Miao Fan's character even more. Miao Fan, so it was you who first harmed the little devil master. This time you reap what you sow. Bah. You're even using your water lily family to threaten others. The water lily is just a lowly species in the lower realm. Do you think you can cultivate to become an immortal without a supreme god? Can your family follow you to the immortal realm? Yes, I heard that her family only raised the supreme god for 3 or 4 days. They took advantage of the fact that the supreme god was too young and pretended to be the supreme god's family. The supreme god saved Miao Fan's life first. When he sent her home, he was tricked by the water lily family. Someone began to expose. Yes, what kind of sister is she? She's just a liar. The supreme god has been kind to her family. She still has the nerve to use this to pressure others. The thing that the 6 realms didn't lack the least was gossip. There were countless immortals and demons who specialized in gathering information. The supreme god was such a powerful existence, and his background had been dug up for so many years. Chapter 2050. It's just that when Miao Fan was proud of herself, no one dared to expose her. Now that she has committed such a heinous crime and even plotted against the Supreme God and the Devil Lord, the Supreme God will definitely not cover for her anymore. Therefore, someone dared to expose her in front of everyone. Everyone likes to beat a drowning dog, even the people from the immortal realm and the underworld are no exception. Moreover, Miao Fan has killed so many people from the 6 realms, there are many people who have a blood feud with her. Therefore, people expose her one after another, denouncing her. The sound of cursing her is like a wave rolling on the river of forgetfulness. Xinjiuli slightly frowns and slightly lifts his sleeve. There is a kind of oppressive aura coming from his body. This action makes the surrounding noise stop. Everyone widens their eyes to look at this supreme god. With this supreme god here, they are not afraid of the demonized Miao Fan anymore. Where is Luo Jiuqian? Xinjiuli asks. The source of all evil is that demigod. It is time to settle the score with that demigod. Miao Fan suddenly laughs loudly. Xinjiuli, do you think I am still the Miao Fan of the past? Let me tell you, I am not necessarily weaker than you now. You want to know his whereabouts? Sure. Defeat me first. Following her laughter, the red cloud behind her also lets out a sharp howl. In a moment, it is like a landslide or a tsunami. Her red cloud's yin qi is extremely heavy. Once it is activated, the surrounding air temperature rapidly drops. Even the rolling blood of the river of forgetfulness is frozen in an instant. The cold wind is chilly, the flowing air is no longer for people to breathe. Instead, it has turned into killing ice needles. Every breath is like sucking in a mouth full of needles. Those who are slightly weaker and do not have time to protect themselves are actually pierced into sieves by the flowing air and blood flows out on the spot. Obviously, this is Miao Fan trying to show off her power to Xinjiuli. Although Ning Xuema does not need to breathe in this state, she does not even feel cold. But looking at the expression of everyone present, she can roughly understand. This Miao Fan is really not simple after turning into a devil. What method did Luo Jiuqian use to make Miao Fan learn such abnormal martial arts in such a short time? A dark light flashed in Xinjiuli's eyes. He waved his wide sleeves and 2 white lights flew out. One flew towards the red cloud, and the other spread out in the air like a thin veil. The red cloud let out a shrill shriek as it collided with the red cloud. The one that spread out was like the morning sun. Wherever it went, the cold resentment would melt away, and the air would return to normal in the blink of an eye. While Xinjiuli was dealing with Red Cloud, Miao Fan's figure flashed. Her palm extended and contracted like a blade and hacked down towards little Xuema, who was standing beside Xinjiuli. The one she hated the most was this little devil master. The one who wanted to tear him to shreds the most was this little demon master. Miao Fan's words and attacks were all aimed at Xinjiuli, as if she didn't care about little Xuema at all. She just wanted Xinjiuli to lower his guard so that he wouldn't be able to protect this little devil master in time. She was waiting for this moment. The big move she used now was the ultimate move. Lightning. Even lightning was not enough to describe her current speed. As for the power was naturally very strong. If little Xuema was caught by her claw, she would probably be torn to pieces. With such a fast speed and such a sinister move, Miao Fan thought that she would definitely succeed. But she didn't expect that little Xuema looked reckless, but she was actually very careful. She was actually prepared. At the moment when Miao Fan was about to grab her, the sword on her waist automatically unsheathed and blocked horizontally. Chapter 2051. The moment Miao Fan grabbed at her, the treasure sword on her waist automatically came out of its sheath and blocked horizontally. Swoosh. Miao Fan's grab landed on that sword. Little Xuema's sword was also a divine weapon and its hardness was comparable to diamond. Normally, it was indestructible and there weren't many weapons that could really hurt it. However, now that it was grabbed by Miao Fan, it actually cracked open instantly. Miao Fan's 10 fingernails directly broke little Xuema's treasure sword into 7 to 8 pieces that fell to the ground. Her fingernails didn't slow down and continued to stab towards little Xuema. Swoosh. A white light flickered and slashed onto Miao Fan's fingernails. Miao Fan gave a grunt and half of her fingernails were broken. Purplish gold blood actually flowed out. Everything happened in an instant. Both parties exchanged blows at lightning speed and before anyone could react, the exchange of blows was already over. Little Xuema was pushed back 4 to 5 steps by Xinjiuli. She suffered a huge loss and was unwilling to accept it. She was about to fight it out with Miao Fan when Xinjiuli waved his hand to set up a barrier around her. Wait here obediently and don't move. Leave it to me. Little Xuema. When she raised her head again, Xinjiuli had already exchanged blows with Miao Fan. Ning Xuema looked at everything from the sky and rubbed the heart of her brows. Everything was developing exactly as Mother Earth had said. The difference was that the one who was exchanging blows with Xinjiuli was Miao Fan and not little Xuema. That barrier was to protect little Xuema, but at the same time, it was to trap her so that she wouldn't rush forward blindly to fight it out with Miao Fan. Luo Jiuchen was indeed a genius to actually nurture Miao Fan into such an awesome killing machine in such a short period of time. When Xinjiuli was exchanging blows with her, lightning flashed and thunder rumbled. In an instant, the sky turned dark and the sun and moon lost their light. The solid ice in the river of forgetfulness was forced by the turbulent air when the two of them were exchanging blows and directly turned into fine powder that scattered in the air. The sky was filled with red. Wherever the two of them fought, that place would be the center of the vortex, and everything that was sucked into it would be crushed into powder. The spectators didn't wait for anyone to say anything, and they all retreated far away. The wizardry barrier that Xinjiuli had set up for little Xuema should be the strongest in the world. The air vortex generated during the battle had no effect on the barrier at all. There was no sign of it being damaged at all. However, little Xuema was trapped in the enchantment and couldn't move. She could only stand there like a boulder. The two of them fought further and further away, gradually shifting the battlefield to the sky. Little Xuema raised her head in the wizardry barrier and looked up at the two people in the sky. The wind was blowing, the clouds were surging, and the lightning was incessant. She was so excited that she wanted to rush up and fight with them. As for the spectators of the three realms, all of them were mesmerized by the battle. Everyone knew that the Divine Lord's kung fu was unfathomable, but it was rare to see him in action. Occasionally when he fought, he would defeat his opponent in a few moves. Before they could see his moves clearly, he had already defeated his opponent. This was the first time he had seen such an open fight in front of so many people. Everyone looked at it for a long time and the same thought appeared in their minds at the same time: unfathomable. As for Miao Fan, the people had suffered countless losses under her hands in the past few days, so they naturally had a good understanding of her martial arts. People could only use one word to describe her current kung fu: abnormal. Her moves were abnormal, the red cloud behind her was abnormal, and even her personality was abnormal. Chapter 2052. It was horrifying. Little Nianma looked up and clenched his fists. The evil power of Miao Fan's kung fu was beyond anyone's expectation. The red cloud behind Miao Fan was omnipotent. It could be used as an armor to defend against external attacks, and it could also be used as a sharp weapon. The resentful spirits in the red cloud were screaming and wailing. Ning Xuema also looked at the red cloud and had a rough idea of what was going on. The red cloud was not a cloud, but a combination of thousands of resentful spirits. Each of these resentful spirits died a horrible death, so the resentment in their bodies was stronger. Even if they had 30% of their kung fu when they were alive, they could use 100% of their kung fu after turning into a resentful spirit. On the surface, Xinjiuli was fighting with Miao Fan alone. In fact, he was fighting with thousands of resentful spirits alone. These thousands of resentful spirits were controlled by Miao Fan using some kind of forbidden technique. They could only be used as her weapons, so the resentment was 10 times stronger. Among the countless resentful spirits, Ning Xuema saw many familiar faces. The Devil Realm's berserk devils and malicious spirits that had bullied little Xuema in the past were all imprisoned. Each and every one of them had a malevolent expression on their faces, maintaining the same appearance they had when they were about to die. They were densely packed together. Don't even mention fighting with them, just looking at them would make people's heart turn cold. Of course, there were not only the enemies from the Devil Kingdom, but also many new ghosts from the underworld, the celestial world, and the human world. Obviously, the reason why Miao Fan's kung fu was getting stronger and improved so quickly had a lot to do with these resentful spirits. Whenever she caught one, she would torture them to death and then absorb their resentment to improve herself. As she killed more and more people, her kung fu naturally became stronger and stronger. Now she had killed hundreds of thousands of people. In other words, she had now gathered the kung fu of hundreds of thousands of people. No wonder her kung fu was so strong now and could be on par with Xinjiuli. Her kung fu now could be said to be able to kill gods and Buddhas. Where did that bastard Luo Jiuchen learn this kind of sorcery? If he knew it, why didn't he use this method to improve himself? There should be a great side effect of using this method, right? Ning Xuema was deep in thought when she suddenly sensed something. She looked down and her heart skipped a beat. Little Xuema was no longer standing there alone. Suddenly, a person floated down beside her. His robe was as white as snow, and his handsome appearance made this hell-like riverbank much more beautiful. It was as if flowers had suddenly bloomed all over the sky. Xinjiuli. Why did he come down? Ning Xuema subconsciously looked up at the sky. The two of them were getting further and further away as they fought. They had already disappeared into the horizon. As for Ning Xuema, she could only stay by little Xuema's side. She couldn't fly into the sky to watch the show, so she couldn't see the figures of the two people. He could only faintly hear the muffled sounds of thunder and lightning in the distant sky. Strange, Xinjiuli suddenly came down. Could it be that the fight was over? Then why didn't he see Miao Fan? A string of questions flashed through Ning Xuema's mind. She focused her attention on Xinjiuli, and her heart suddenly jolted. No, he was not Xinjiuli. He was Luo Jiuchen. This Xinjiuli stood beside little Xuema and was talking to her with a smile. Xuema, come on, give me your hand. Little Xuema had always listened to him. Hearing this, she immediately stretched out her hand, but touched the wizardry barrier. Xinjiuli's eyes flashed. His hand approached the wizardry barrier and touched little Xuema through it. Chapter 2053. Xinjiuli's eyes flashed. His hand moved closer to the barrier and touched little Xuema through the barrier. His voice was even gentler. Xuema, use your magic power on this finger and force the blood out of your middle finger. Smear the blood on the barrier. Little Xuema's eyes were full of question marks. Why? Xinjiuli said, Xuema, listen to me. I have a use for it. I don't have time to explain it to you now. Come on, hurry up. Don't do what he says. He's a fake. He's Luo Jiuchen. Ning Xuema knew that Luo Jiuchen was up to no good. She couldn't help but shout. However, no one could hear her voice. Naturally, little Xuema could not hear her. Recently, she had been very obedient to Xinjiuli's words, so she didn't ask any more questions. She agreed readily, okay. She immediately did as he said. Her white and tender little hand touched the barrier. Blood seeped out of her middle finger and stained the barrier. Xinjiuli's eyes flashed. Taking advantage of the situation, he raised his hand like a knife and slashed at little Xuema's protective barrier. Pop. Such a sturdy enchantment actually burst like a balloon. Little Xuema was stunned. Before she could react, her wrist was grabbed by Shinjoli. She was pulled into his arms and his arms circled around her slender waist. Little Shuema was speechless. Her waist was a little tight and she was a little breathless. She didn't understand why Shinjoli suddenly wanted to hug her. She couldn't help but struggle. Julie, you're hurting me. By the way, did you catch Meow Fan? Why don't I see her? Suddenly, she seemed to have noticed something. You are not Julie. She suddenly hit the man's chest with both hands. Let go of me. The man's arms suddenly tightened. Little Shuema seemed to have been plotted against by him, and her pretty face instantly turned pale. The man chuckled in her ear. I'm also someone who likes you. Don't be so rude to me. His voice was magnetic and beautiful. It was a very nice baritone. Little Shuema froze and glared at him. Luo Jiochin. That person had caught little Shuema off guard. At this moment he had already caught her and flew up while carrying her. He lightly laughed in her ear. So you still remember me. I'm very happy. In order to avoid being caught in the crossfire, the other spectators had already stayed far away from this battle vortex. They were not here at the moment. When Luo Jiochin flew up with little Shuema in his arms, few people saw it. Even if someone saw it, they couldn't see it clearly because they were too far away. Ning Shuema was forced to follow little Shuema. She hated Luo Jiochin to the core. She watched as Luo Jiochin carried little Shuema and flew towards the fiercest change in the wind and clouds. Her heart sank. Luo Jiochin, this bastard, didn't want to use little Shuema's safety to force Shinjoli to submit. He really could do it. Luo Jiochin carried little Shuema and flew higher and higher, faster and faster. Ning Shuema naturally flew with him, not leaving little Shuema by about 10 meters. Finally she saw Shinjoli again. High in the sky, amidst the blue clouds, his white robe was particularly dazzling, as if he was stepping on the stars. Around his body was a circle of snow-white glass swords. The red cloud formed by the resentful spirits turned into a giant blood-red sword and slashed down at Shinjoli. Shinjoli's face was calm. With a flip of his sleeve, the snow-white glass swords flew out like rainbows and turned into thousands of swords in the air. In the blink of an eye, they formed a sword array and met the red cloud head-on. Chapter 2054. The cries of ghosts and howls of wolves could be heard everywhere. The huge sword transformed from the red cloud looked like it had been plunged directly into sulfuric acid. The snow-white swords were flying around the huge sword. Every time a small sword passed by, it would stab a resentful spirit coiled around the huge sword. Those resentful spirits would scream and disappear. The huge blood-red sword was disappearing at a speed visible to the naked eye. Meow Fan, who was controlling the huge blood-red sword, had a pale face. She probably didn't expect Shinjoli to find a way to deal with her peerless weapon so quickly. Therefore she was a bit flustered. She wanted to take back the huge blood-red sword, but for every inch she took back, those snow-white swords would follow her. She had no doubt that once she took back the blood-red sword, those snow-white swords would break through her evil cloud barrier and cut her into pieces. Jioli, do you really have the heart to kill me? Meow Fan howled. Disasters committed by the heavens can be forgiven, but disasters committed by oneself cannot be forgiven. Shinjoli replied to her with these words, but he didn't let go of the spell on his fingertips. The snow-white swords nibbled at the huge sword inch by inch, and Meow Fan's face turned paler and paler. Obviously, this weird red cloud was closely connected to her body. If the resentful spirits on the red cloud were damaged, her soul would be damaged as well. Seeing the huge blood-red sword getting smaller and smaller, Meow Fan was finally scared. She begged, Jioli, for the sake of our many years of brotherhood, please spare me this time. Jioli, don't force me anymore. Jioli, I'm doing this because I love you. For the sake of my love for you, please spare me. Jioli. You see, I've suffered so much. You don't even know what I've suffered. Jioli, for the sake of my mother. She was shouting incoherently, and tears were rolling in her blood-red eyes. She still had the face of little Shuema, so when she cried like this she looked quite pitiful. However, she didn't have little Shuema's temperament, so she couldn't control little Shuema's appearance. Her expression looked strange and stiff, but there was a kind of mournful beauty. However, Shinjoli remained unmoved. He didn't say a word. His expression was as calm as before, and his hands were steadily forming a spell. Apparently, Meow Fan's begging words didn't leave a shadow in his heart. Meow Fan finally despaired, Shinjoli, if you let me go, I will tell you where Luo Jiochin is. There's no need for that. I'll find him myself. He can't run away. Shinjuli finally opened his golden mouth. His voice was increasingly calm. Miao Fan's face changed. So, you must kill me today? I won't kill you. Shinjuli said indifferently, I'll hand you over to the judges of the 6 realms, and they will give you the most just punishment. Miao Fan's face turned ashen. She had committed such a sin, and if she fell into the hands of the leaders of the 6 realms, what awaited her would be the punishment of being struck by lightning. By then she wouldn't even have the chance to be reincarnated. She might as well die in Shinjuli's hands. No matter how cruel he was, she had been his sister for so many years. He should still have some affection for her. Maybe he would just kill her body and leave her soul to be reincarnated. Jiuli, I'd rather die in your hands. Miao Fan said word by word. She closed her eyes and the blood-red sword suddenly disappeared. Because of the strong inertia, the snow-white swords released by Shinjuli rushed towards Miao Fan. Chapter 2055. Shinjuli's expression changed slightly. Just as he was about to change his move, a purple light suddenly flew over from the side and intercepted the snow-white swords. Shinjuli was in the middle of retrieving his technique when it was intercepted by the purple light. With the help of the 2 forces, the snow-white swords finally disappeared into thin air. However, because the snow-white swords were too close to Miao Fan, the sword energy on the sword still collided with Miao Fan's body. Because Miao Fan had removed the red clouds protecting her body, this collision was especially serious. It sent her body flying 3 feet away and she violently vomited blood in midair. Shinjuli, don't destroy this sovereign's weapon. A voice came from afar with a lazy smile. Luo Jiuchen, you finally came out. Shinjuli's voice was also lazy. He knew that once he forced Miao Fan too much, Luo Jiuchen would definitely appear. After all, Miao Fan was no longer just a person but a great killing machine. A great killing machine in Luo Jiuchen's scheme. He would definitely not be willing to let the great killing machine that he had painstakingly cultivated be destroyed just like that. Shinjuli no longer looked at Miao Fan, who had almost lost her ability to fight. He turned to look in the direction of Luo Jiuchen and his eyes suddenly shrank. Luo Jiuchen had already returned to his original appearance. His purple robe fluttered as he walked over, and little Shuema who was waiting below was in his hands. Luo Jiuchen smiled elegantly, but little Shuema in his arms had a vexed expression as she tightly pursed her lips. Luo Jiuchen wrapped one arm around her waist, and the bamboo flute in his other hand transformed into a green and lustrous blade. He placed it on little Shuema's neck and smiled calmly at Shinjuli. Shinjuli, I think we should have a good talk. His tone was as if he had met an old acquaintance and was casually talking about the weather, extremely natural. But the blade in his hand accidentally touched little Shuema's delicate neck, and a line of blood immediately slid down her skin and into her clothes. Shinjuli's fingers slowly clenched in his sleeves, but his expression did not change. What do you want to talk about? At this time, the situation was equivalent to completely reversed. Miao Fan escaped death, and her forehead was covered in sweat. She hurriedly climbed up from the clouds and rushed towards Luo Jiuchen. Jiuchen. But before she could reach Luo Jiuchen, her body was suddenly imprisoned by a white light and flew to fly away. When she came to her senses, she had already landed to fall to the side of Shinjuchen's side. Miao Fan, all these years she had chosen to stand by Shinjuchen's side. But this wish to be a hostages. To ask she's chooses was, but Shinjuli's obsession with cleanliness was probably too strong. He did not hold her like Luo Jiuchen did to little Shuema. Instead, he directly trapped her in a boundary. Although she was Shinjuli's hostage, she still could not touch his clothes. Her eyes were filled with resentment, and she said in a trembling voice, Juli, are you going to use me as a hostage in exchange for her? Shinjuli was too lazy to pay attention to her. His eyes fell on Luo Jiuchen. Let her go. The her he was referring to was little Shuema. Luo Jiuchen ignored Shinjuli. His thumb gently rubbed little Shuema's bleeding neck, and his face revealed a distressed expression. I'm sorry. I didn't want to hurt you. Does it hurt? His voice was unusually gentle. The blade in Luo Jiuchen's hand was obviously not an ordinary blade, and an ordinary blade naturally could not hurt little Shuema. Chapter 2056. Little Shuema's pretty face flushed red. She probably didn't expect that she would become Shinjuli's burden. Although her neck hurt badly, she pursed her lips and didn't make a sound. Amo, you're really strong. You're in so much pain but you don't make a sound. This sword is made of black iron from the Shinming Sea. Not only can it cut people's skin but it can also suck people's souls bit by bit. So Amo, you have to be good and hold on a little longer. Luo Juchen seemed to be kindly reminding little Shuema, but he was secretly threatening Shinjuli. Although nothing could be seen on Shinjuli's face, the knuckles of his fingers hidden in his sleeves had turned white. He had fought with Luo Juchen for so many years, so he naturally knew that the sword in his hand was best at sucking the souls of demons. No matter what kind of demon it was, as long as the skin was cut by this sword, the sword chi would drill into the demon's body and travel along the blood vessels like a knife silk, cutting the demon's soul bit by bit. The pain was unbearable. He had seen Luo Juchen use this method to make a demon. That demon's finger was just cut by the sword, and he screamed like a pig being slaughtered. The more he screamed, the softer his voice became until his soul was completely swallowed by the sword. Luo Juchen's sword wasn't so powerful against immortals. It only had such an effect on demons. But little Shuema was a real demon. So it was easy to imagine the damage this sword could do to her. Little Shuema looked small but she was very tenacious. Her forehead was already sweating from the pain, but she refused to cry out. She ignored Luo Juchen's threat. What a strong child. Luo Juchen sighed. He looked up at Shinjuli. Brother Juli, what do you think? Shinjuli didn't pay much attention to things before. His strength was very high so no one could threaten him. But now he had little Shuema in his heart. Although it felt good to care about someone, this person also became a weakness for others to threaten him. Because he cared, he couldn't be absolutely calm. Shinjuli's mental strength was strong enough, but seeing little Shuema like this, his heart began to waver. He took a deep breath. Luo Juchen, what do you want? Tell me straight. Luo Juchen smiled. His smile was warm but the light in his eyes were as sharp as needles. Brother Juchen, what do I want? What do I want? Shinjuli was silent for a moment. You want the position of the Master God? Luo Juchen chuckled. I naturally want the position of a chief god but I also want something from you. As long as you give me that thing, I will immediately release little Imo. What? Your life. Luo's 8, Luo Juchen chuckled again. I know that sovereigns won't die so easily and others won't be able to kill you easily. But if you want to kill yourself, you can always think of a way, right? The sword in Shinjuli's hand flashed with white light, reflecting his dark eyes. Do you think I will abandon the world for a girl? He glanced at Miao Fan. His eyes were as cold as ice. Miao Fan's heart skipped a beat. She knew Shinjuli's temper very well. He was never threatened by anyone and he wouldn't lose his principles for anything. No matter how much he liked something, it was just pure love. He wouldn't be threatened to do something against his conscience because of this love. Chapter 2057. Shinjuli had a habit of picking up spiritual pets randomly. Whenever he saw a cute spiritual pet or one that he liked, he would take it back and raise it for a period of time. During the process of raising the spiritual pets, he was very patient and even very loving. When he had just become a supreme god, he had once doted on a little fox and brought it with him wherever he went. As a result, someone began to have ideas about the little fox and caught it when it was out alone. Then that person took the little fox to see Shinjuli and wanted to force him to do something against his principles. In order to force Shinjuli to comply, that person tortured the little fox in all kinds of ways in front of him, but he was not moved at all. In the end, the little fox died. It was killed by Shinjuli with one palm, along with the person who tortured it. God had to protect the heavenly Tao and could not care too much about other things. Otherwise, it would be easy to lose fairness because of this concern. Ever since the incident with little fox, Shinjuli no longer cared about anything else. No matter how good the spiritual pets were, he would let go after raising them for a while and not let them become his weakness. This was the main reason why he became more and more indifferent to people and things. Now that Luo Juchen was using the little devil's life to threaten Shinjuli to die, Shinjuli would definitely not comply. He would most likely treat little Shuema like how he treated the little fox and let Luo Juchen kill little Shuema. At most, he would kill Luo Juchen to avenge little Shuema. Must be like this. Miao Fan was overjoyed when she thought of this result. What she could not get, that little devil would not be able to get either. The only thing that made her a little afraid was that if Luo Juchen tortured little Shuema to death, Shinjuli would definitely avenge her. Before he killed Luo Juchen, he would probably kill her, Miao Fan. This was too bad. The best way was for both sides to exchange hostages. Then she would be safe. Only by saving her life could she think about the future. Where there is life there is hope. If they pushed Xinjuli too hard he would probably choose to fight to the death. Miao Fan's heart was in a mess, but she quickly calculated the gains and losses. Her beautiful eyes fell on Luo Jiuchen. "Jiuchen, save me first." Luo Jiuchen looked over and smiled. "Why should I save you?" Miao Fan was stunned. After Luo Jiuchen rescued her from the devil world, he talked to her endlessly and carefully treated her injuries. Later, when he found out that she was Miao Fan and not little Xuema, he was only stunned for a long time. Then he sighed and said that he had caused her to suffer, so he was gentler to her. She was covered in cuts and bruises and was in so much pain that she almost cried out day and night. Luo Jiuchen's medicine was not very effective. Later, Luo Jiuchen thought of a way to let her practice an evil skill. He said that this evil skill could not only greatly improve her skills, but also quickly heal her wounds and relieve pain. He asked her if she wanted to practice it. At that time, Miao Fan only wanted to take revenge. When she heard that it could relieve pain, she immediately agreed. She began to practice the evil skill. Practicing the evil skill required a primer, and that primer was living people. She tortured innocent people to death and used their resentment to refine red clouds. After all, Luo Jiuchen was a demigod. His hands could not be stained with blood. Therefore, at the beginning, Luo Jiuchen only told her the refining method and then took her to a certain place to catch those people. After all, Miao Fan was once a deity. At the beginning she was a little hesitant. Moreover, she knew that once she started, she would officially enter the devil path. She could no longer turn back. Chapter 2058. Luo Jiuchen didn't force her, but stayed by her side and treated her with ordinary medical skills, but it didn't work at all. She was in even more pain. In order to relieve her pain, Miao Fan finally made a move on ordinary people. After refining the first person, Miao Fan found that her injury was indeed a little better. Once you start doing something bad, you won't feel any pressure to do it again. So, Miao Fan began to kill passers-by like an addict. Luo Jiuchen told her that the higher the martial arts of the people she refined, the better the effect of the refining. So, when her injury was half healed, she began to catch those with high martial arts. Luo Jiuchen didn't lie to her. As she killed more and more people, her injury healed faster and faster until she had a certain level of martial arts to kill her way into the demon world. During those days, although Luo Jiuchen didn't participate in her killing, he stayed by her side, comforting her and comforting her. Even when she woke up from nightmares at night, he sat by her side and told her not to be afraid. He would accompany her. Unconsciously, Luo Jiuchen became a strong shield in Miao Fan's heart. She thought that Luo Jiuchen would always protect her and wouldn't be willing to let her get hurt. So, at this time, she thought that Luo Jiuchen would save her without hesitation, but she didn't expect him to give her such a sentence. Miao Fan was stunned. She felt like she was hurt 10,000 times. "Jiuchen, haven't you always been?" Luo Jiuchen's lips slightly curved and a cruel smile appeared on his face. "Always been? Good to you?" "Miao Fan, you're just a big killing weapon that I cultivated to deal with him. Now that I've found a better weapon to deal with him, why should I save you? A woman like you is worse than a blade of grass in my eyes." Miao Fan's face turned pale. You're burning the bridge after crossing the river." Luo Jiuchen smiled. "You're too stupid." Miao Fan. She was so angry that her face turned green and her body trembled slightly. Luo Jiuchen was too lazy to pay attention to her. He looked at Xinjuli. "Brother Juli, what do you think?" "Actually, I don't mind wasting some time, but I'm afraid that IMO can't wait. Look at her little face, it looks so pale. Diske, and she's sweating so much. It must be very painful." His every word was like a sharp blade that slammed into Xinjuli's eardrums. Xinjuli finally spoke. "Let her go, and you can do whatever you want with me." Miao Fan suddenly opened her eyes wide. His face was filled with disbelief. Even little Xuema, who was under Luo Jiuchen's control, suddenly looked up at him. Luo Jiuchen chuckled. "Xinjuli, you know full well that you're a master god. Even if you fall into my hands, I won't dare to do anything to you. Otherwise, I will be charged with the crime of deicide. Not only will I not be able to replace you, but I will also be punished by the heavenly Tao." If a demigod wanted to replace a main god, there were two choices. Firstly, if he killed a sovereign in a fair battle, the heavenly Tao would not punish him. Secondly, the primary god would automatically fall and be replaced by a secondary god. If it wasn't a fair battle, A secondary god couldn't hurt a main god with his own hands. Otherwise, if he hurt a main god, the heavenly Tao would pay him back tenfold. Therefore, even if Xinjiuli didn't resist and fell into his hands, he couldn't kill him. Unless it was a fair battle, but if it was a fair battle, no matter how much Luo Jiuchen cultivated, he wouldn't be Xinjiuli's opponent. Chapter 2059. Ning Xuema had been hovering above little Xuema's head the whole time and saw everything. Damn it. This was too melodramatic. Such a melodramatic and classic scene actually appeared here. However, if this plot was used properly, it could really threaten people. Ning Xuema was very clear about Xinjiuli's feelings for her. He definitely wouldn't watch little Xuema die like this. However, there was nothing he could do now. Little Xuema was in Luo Jiuchen's hands, and from the looks of it, Luo Jiuchen could easily take little Xuema's life. Xinjiuli couldn't ignore it. Tian Dao. What kind of lousy candidate did you choose? How can such a despicable person be a sub-god? Tian Dao, you are indeed a stone. You were born without eyes. Ning Xuema wanted to rush down and replace little Xuema to deal with all this, but she was bounced back several times by the invisible barrier around little Xuema. This invisible barrier was strange. It couldn't protect little Xuema from being hurt, but it could prevent Ning Xuema from possessing it. Ning Xuema was anxious and couldn't help but complain about Tian Dao. A row of golden exclamation marks suddenly appeared in Ning Xuema's mind. Tian Dao's display. Ning Xuema was stunned. Wasn't that stone in the Fantian Palace? Why was it able to hear her complaining here? Did this stone grow clairvoyant ears? Tian Dao, are you nearby? I have something to ask you. Ning Xuema said. 3 more question marks appeared in Ning Xuema's mind. Ning Xuema was speechless. Tian Dao was so good at using punctuation. Tian Dao, are you really here? Aren't you in the Fantian Palace? The stone body is just my appearance. I am everywhere. A row of words appeared almost proudly. So you are everywhere. In that case, why don't you try to collect this sub-god? Why do you let him do such evil? Gods are born in time and sub-gods are born in disaster. A row of words began to appear in Ning Xuema's mind. Ning Xuema was speechless. She understood these words. In other words, there were good people and bad people in this world. Those who saved the people from fire and water were born from time to time, and those who caused the people to become homeless were born from disaster, such as Hitler. In fact, this god was the real devil, right? The real devil who caused chaos in the 6 realms. Demigods did not violate the rules of the heavenly Tao. Therefore, the heavenly Tao is unable to punish them. This was the conclusion the heavenly Tao gave to Ning Xuema. Ning Xuema giggled. Since he didn't personally kill anyone, it doesn't count as his evil doing? He was the initiator. What kind of bullshit rules did Tian Dao set? It was like an official who ordered a large number of people to be killed. The official wasn't guilty, but his subordinates were. He didn't order Miao Fan to kill. Tian Dao insisted. Luo Jiuchen only taught Miao Fan the evil method, but he didn't force Miao Fan to do it. Miao Fan did everything voluntarily, so Luo Jiuchen didn't violate the rules of heaven. Ning Xuema clenched her fist. It seemed that Luo Jiuchen was very smart. He wandered around the blank area of Tian Dao and took the gray route. Just like some people who wandered around the edge of the law and took advantage of the loopholes. And Luo Jiuchen took advantage of the loopholes of Tian Dao. Tian Dao, I really think you should change the rules. It's wrong to stick to the rules. Although you are a stone, you have to be flexible, right? If you are too conservative, you will be abandoned by the times. Chapter 2060. Tian Dao began to use exclamation marks again. Look, you know how to use punctuation marks? It proves that you are a rock that can listen to advice. You can only be a wise rock if you are willing to listen to advice. I am Tian Dao, not a rock. Well, you are the Tian Dao stone. Think about it, am I right? Tang Taizong became a wise emperor because he was brave enough to listen to advice. Ning Xuema began to give it examples. The Tian Dao stone did not respond. Ning Xuema was anxious. She waited for a moment and immediately asked, Tian Dao, you must think that I am right, so you are starting to think of a way, right? You can't just watch as your guardian is replaced, right? Xinjiuli is such a high existence. He is 10,000 times stronger than this sub-god. You should not be emotional. The guardian of Tian Dao must be emotionless. The Tian Dao stone finally showed. Being emotional is better than being lustful, right? The sub-god is lustful. His greed is endless. If he really becomes the main god, he might replace you. Ning Xuema guided it patiently. Tian Dao said, "Then what do you want?" "Kill the sub-god. You have to protect your guardian at the critical moment." Tian Dao stuttered and paused. Suddenly, a line of bright words flashed. "I will send you to solve this crisis." After the line of words flashed, Ning Xuema felt her vision turn black and her body become heavy. Then she felt an overwhelming pain coming from her neck and stiffening. She was possessed again. The possession was successful. After the possession was successful, she understood why little Xuema was motionless in Luo Jiuqin's arms. Her acupoints were sealed. Ning Xuema heard Luo Jiuqin counting, "Brother Jiuli, if you don't make a decision, I will let Imo suffer first." 1. Although Ning Xuema had been arguing with the heavenly Tao just now, she still heard the argument on Luo Jiuqin's side. Luo Jiuqin couldn't hurt Xinjiuli with his own hands, so he forced Xinjiuli to cut off his own arms and legs with the Sky Splitter sword. He wanted Xinjiuli to turn himself into a human stick. Ning Xuema finally saw the Sky Splitter sword in this life. This sword should have been refined by little Xuema after she became a demon. Now, because history had been changed, it was refined by Luo Jiuqin. At this moment, the sword was just hanging there and Xinjiuli could grab it with a single grab. Ning Xuema was well aware of the power of this sword. Back then, it had only pierced Xinjiuli once. It had taken him a long time to recover, and it had almost taken his life. If he used the sword to cut off his arms and legs, how could Xinjiuli survive? Although it was Xinjiuli's first time seeing this sword, he was an expert in weapons. He could tell at a glance that this sword was extremely fierce. He pursed his thin lips slightly. His fingers were clenched so tightly that the veins on the back of his hand popped out. He was a god, born to protect the 6 realms. He should be emotionless and give up on little Xuema. However, he finally found someone he truly wanted to protect. How could he give up? Although little Xuema rarely looked at him, he could see the cold sweat on her forehead. It was obvious that she was suffering. 2. Luo Jiuqin's voice was like a demon's, urging Xinjiuli to make a decision. Once he counted to 10, according to Luo Jiuqin, he would use the Sky Splitter sword to cut off little Xuema's hand first. Xinjiuli's face grew paler and paler, and his fingers trembled slightly. It was obvious that he was in a dilemma. 3. Luo Jiuqin was even more pleased. His eyes were like blades as he stared at Xinjiuli. Chapter 2061. Firstly, it was to guard against his sudden attack. Secondly, Luo Jiuqin admired his current expression. Being able to force Xinjiuli, his archenemy, into a corner was a delightful thing. He didn't want to miss any of his opponent's expressions. He counted slowly and evenly. Every count was like a drumstick hitting one's heart heavily. Xinjiuli's expression became uglier and uglier. His forehead was already covered in sweat. His fingers were trembling more and more, and even his sleeves were shaking. Soon Luo Jiuqin reached the count. 9. His sword had already been transferred to little Xuema's wrist. If he counted another number, little Xuema's hand would fly out. Imo, it's not that I don't love you. It's that the man you're thinking about doesn't love you. Luo Jiuqin was smiling, but his tone was cruel. His thin lips parted slightly, and he was about to spit out the last number. All right. Xinjiuli had no other choice and finally relented. He waved his sleeves and raised his hand to grab the Sky Splitter sword. When Luo Jiuqin heard Xinjiuli say, "Okay," he felt as if he had eaten ice cubes in the middle of summer. His heart, which had been stretched taut, finally relaxed. He was actually afraid that Xinjiuli wouldn't agree. After all, he didn't want to hurt little Xuema too much. He had always liked this little girl. The more he couldn't get her, the more he liked her. Of course, compared to power, little Xuema's position in his heart was slightly lower. Yes, it was only slightly lower than power. Amo, as long as I get the position of Master God, I'll definitely treat you well in the future. I'll make you the God Empress who's second only to me and above everyone else. He silently made a wish in his heart. He stared at Xinjiuli, waiting for the moment that would make him the happiest. Xinjiuli's fingers had already grasped the hilt of the Sky Splitter sword. At this moment, the atmosphere was so heavy that it seemed like even the air had frozen. Ah! A mournful cry suddenly rang out. It was so loud that it shook the surrounding clouds. The sound was too sudden. Everyone was shaken by this sound and their ears went numb. Especially Luo Jiuqin because he was the closest to the howl, he was almost seeing stars. His hand that was holding the knife trembled and he almost cut his own hand. This scream came from Ning Xuema. Although Luo Jiuchen had sealed little Xuema's acupoints, he didn't seal her mute acupoints in order to make her cry out in pain when she was tortured. In order to create a better effect, he even tapped on the acupoints that could increase her volume. Just now, little Xuema didn't make a sound no matter what torture she suffered, so Luo Jiuchen gave up the idea of letting her make a sound. He had never thought that she would shout so loudly at this moment. This cry was too mournful. Luo Jiuchen's heartstrings trembled. He thought that he had already cut Xuema's hand. Subconsciously, he moved the knife away a few inches and looked down at her. "Why are you?" Almost at this moment, a bolt of white light flashed over. Ding! With a crisp sound, the white light hit Luo Jiuchen's hand that was holding the knife. Luo Jiuchen's attention was on Ning Xuema at this moment, so he wasn't prepared at all. His hand suddenly hurt. His 5 fingers were cut off. The knife in his hand naturally fell from the clouds. The sharp pain caused his hand to tremble. Little Xuema, who had been unable to move in his arms, suddenly sent a palm towards his left ribs. Her movements were as fast as lightning. Luo Jiuchen didn't have time to react and was hit by her palm. Chapter 2062. She had probably used all her strength in this slap. It was so powerful that Luo Jiuchen felt as if he had been hit by a big hammer. With a groan, the arm that was holding little Xuema finally loosened. Little Xuema took the opportunity to squat down and rolled 18 times in a row in the clouds. At the moment of rolling, her toes curled up and she kicked Luo Jiuchen's crotch. All of this happened too fast. In a flash, little Xuema had successfully escaped from Luo Jiuchen's attack range. Luo Jiuchen's reaction was also fast. He immediately flew to catch her. But even though he was fast, Shinjuli was faster. His figure flashed and he was already beside little Xuema. He picked her up and protected her behind him. When Luo Jiuchen flew over, what greeted him was Shinjuli's dazzling flying sword. "Luo Jiuchen, this time I will make you pay the price." Shinjuli really had the intention to kill. Luo Jiuchen's face suddenly changed. He didn't have a hostage. If he used force, he was definitely not Shinjuli's opponent. What's more, the other party was really angry. He turned around and wanted to escape. But how could Shinjuli let him go? After all, after fighting for so many years, Shinjuli had long understood his way of escaping when he couldn't win. His figure flashed and stopped him in advance. Luo Jiuchen almost hit his head on the tip of his sword. Since he couldn't escape, he could only start fighting and look for a chance to escape in the fight. The two of them rolled in the air and fought. For a moment, the wind and clouds surged, and the sky turned dark again. Little Xuema didn't go forward to help. She landed slightly and stood beside Miao Fan, who was bound by Shinjuli's enchantment. Then she began to bandage her own wounds. Damn it, Luo Jiuchen's broken knife had only scratched a layer of skin on her neck, but it hurt like a bee sting. Her little face was still pale and cold sweat was dripping down. "So this is how he treats you. He doesn't even care that you're injured. He even has the heart to fight with others." Miao Fan began to make sarcastic remarks. She really didn't understand. Luo Jiuchen clearly had the upper hand, so how did the situation suddenly reverse? Most importantly, in that scene, Xuema and Shinjuli cooperated so well. It was simply too wonderful. As long as one of them didn't react in time, this opportunity would be missed. After all, Luo Jiuchen was as cunning as a fox. Shinjuli was actually willing to lose his principles and commit suicide for little Xuema. This in itself caused Miao Fan to be taken aback, and the flames of jealousy in her heart soared high. Now that little Xuema was out of danger, she couldn't help but want to provoke her. Little Xuema didn't pay attention to her at all. A medicine bottle appeared in her palm, and she applied the pink ointment inside to the wound on her neck. After the ointment was applied, the needle-like pain on her neck finally disappeared. Her little mouth hooked up and she smiled. Miao Fan stared at the medicine bottle in her hand and recognized that it was Shinjuli's medicine bottle. Her eyes flashed with hatred. After treating the wound on her neck, Ning Xuema finally calmed down and did something else. She shook the small medicine bottle in front of Miao Fan and said, "Do you hate that Luo Jiuchen didn't take away all the medicine on me when he caught me?" Miao Fan. She did hate this. The curve on Ning Xuema's small mouth became even more beautiful. "Luo Jiuchen really didn't search my body. However, I didn't bring this medicine bottle with me. It was given to me by the great deity." Chapter 2063. Miao Fan was speechless. It turned out that Xinjuli didn't care about this girl. He had already prepared the antidote for her. The jealousy in her heart rose even more. So what? You were in so much pain just now and your face was pale. If he really cared about you, he would have held you in his arms and comforted you and checked your injuries? Ning Xuema giggled. This Miaofan world of mysteries must have read too many books. She thought she was singing a drama. At such a critical moment, it was natural to get rid of Luo Jiuqin first. What's more, when she rolled away just now, anyone could see that her body didn't suffer any serious injuries. Xinjuli was a genius doctor, so he could naturally see it too. After she succeeded in possessing the body, she immediately winked at Xinjuli. Xinjuli had been with her for a long time recently, so he immediately understood that the body had changed again. He didn't show it on his face, but he began to pay attention to Ning Xuema's lips. Ning Xuema's back was facing Luo Jiuqin, so Luo Jiuqin naturally couldn't see her expression. Ning Xuema mouthed to Xinjuli to act according to the situation. Xinjuli was extremely smart, so he immediately understood Ning Xuema's intention. He knew that this girl was very clever and had many strange ways to escape, so he let out a sigh of relief before he made a move. Moreover, the method Ning Xuema used was something no one had expected. She suddenly screamed when Luo Jiuqin was most relaxed, which successfully attracted Luo Jiuqin's attention and distracted him at the most critical moment. Of course, Luo Jiuqin was only distracted for a second, but this was enough for anything to happen. When Xinjuli knocked away Luo Jiuqin's knife, he also opened Ning Xuema's acupoint with his finger, which made her suddenly move and hit Luo Jiuqin, successfully escaping from his evil claws. The cooperation between the two could be said to be incomparable, and Ning Xuema was very satisfied. Xinjuli was simply too good, as expected of the person she fancied. When Miao Fan saw the smile on Ning Xuema's face, she felt that it was even more dazzling. He couldn't help but ask again, "Shouldn't you go up and help at this time?" Ning Xuema crossed her arms and said with a smile, "I believe in him. He can handle it alone." Her power had not fully recovered yet. If she blindly rushed into the battle, she would not be of help but be a hindrance. She would never do such a brainless thing. This was also the reason why Xinjuli had protected little Xuema in the wizardry barrier. He was afraid that she would cause trouble in a moment of passion. At this time, all she had to do was to guard the barrier that trapped Miao Fan. Miao Fan was so angry that her face turned green. "You don't dare, do you? Are you afraid that Jiuqin will catch you again?" Ning Xuema tilted her head and looked at her. "Jiuqin? You sound so intimate. Do you want to hear a secret?" Miao Fan said coldly. "What secret?" "Humph, what secret can you have?" Ning Xuema unhurriedly said, "When you were suffering in the demon realm, Luo Jiuqin was actually standing on a tree watching you being bitten bite by bite." Miao Fan's face changed. "Nonsense." After a pause, she asked, "How do you know?" "That's because at that time, Great God and I were also standing on another tree to watch." That scene was very satisfying. Ning Xuema was infuriating her to death. Miao Fan's lips turned white. She clenched her fists. She did not expect that Xinjuli would be so cruel. When he saw her suffering, he did not save her. Instead, he watched the show with this little bitch. This blow was especially big for her. It was like being slapped in the face. Chapter 2064. Miao Fan's heart was filled with anger and anger. Finally, she found a sentence that could attack Ning Xuema. The reason why Jiuqin stood there and watched was because he thought that the person who was caught by the devil cult was you. He didn't know that it was me. After he recognized me, he regretted it so much. He was especially good to me and healed my wounds. Ning Xuema laughed again. "He healed your wounds but he couldn't, right?" Miao Fan's eyes widened. How did you know?" She paused and said, "Jiuqin's medical skills are indeed not as good as Jolie's. What's so strange about him not being able to heal me?" "You're wrong. Your wounds are just flesh wounds. Jiuqin is very good at healing them. He has that kind of miraculous medicine that can instantly heal the skin. If he really wants to treat you, your wounds will be healed in less than a day." "Nonsense. You're talking nonsense. He doesn't have that kind of medicine." Miao Fan shouted angrily. After she became a devil, her temper had become particularly irritable. Ning Xuema looked at her with pity in her eyes. "He acted like that because he wanted to force you to cultivate it on your own to become his killing weapon. That's all because he himself can't cultivate that demonic technique. He doesn't care about you at all. Didn't he have the intention to save you just now?" Ning Xuema's provocation was not worse than Miao Fan's. She could definitely make people jump in anger. Miao Fan's face turned green with anger. Nonsense. You're talking nonsense. You're trying to drive a wedge between us. I won't be fooled by you. Well, just take it that I'm trying to drive a wedge between you. You'll feel better this way. Alright, there's one more thing that I forgot to tell you. Although the sorcery that you're cultivating can make you the enemy of 10,000 people in a short period of time, it's extremely awesome. But it will cause great damage to your body and soul. In less than a year you won't need anyone to kill you. You'll directly go berserk. At that time, the red cloud that you cultivated will backfire and you will suffer the pain of 10,000 souls devouring your body until your soul disappears. Miao Fan, you're talking nonsense. 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 She was so angry that she spat out a mouthful of blood. Ning Xuema smiled and patted her enchantment with her small hand. Well, don't believe me. I'm talking nonsense. Luo Jiuqin didn't practice it himself and let you practice it because he is a living Lei Feng. He only wants you to become the number one person in the 6 realms. The more she spoke, the more nervous Miao Fan became. At this moment, she faintly understood that what Ning Xuema said was all true. Otherwise, why would Luo Jiuqin not practice such a powerful sorcery himself? Yes. Blatant exploitation. She had been completely used. He was still in the dark. How infuriating. Miao Fan was so angry that she felt dizzy. Hot blood rushed up to her head, and she felt a sweet taste in her throat. Then she spurted out blood. Everything in front of him turned black and he fell limply into the barrier. Ning Xuema clapped her hands. You'll die from anger. You're a pighead, but you always feel that others are stupid. Miao Fan is the representative of that. After dealing with Miao Fan, Ning Xuema began to cross her arms and watch the battle between Xinjiuli and Luo Jiuqin. The battle between the two of them was simply brilliant. Luo Jiuqin was like the legendary alien. His finger was clearly cut off by Xinjiuli, but it actually grew back in a moment and returned to its original state. Both of them were the most powerful people in the 6 realms. Once they fought, it would simply be shocking. What battle! The summit of the Forbidden City was simply too weak compared to them. The light of magic power filled the sky. Both of them were extremely fast. They separated and reunited in the air, dazzling the eyes of the spectators. Chapter 2065. Xinjiuli was naturally stronger than Luo Jiuqin, but he had just fought with the demonized Miao Fan and did not have time to rest before he started the second round. In this regard, Luo Jiuqin had the advantage. He had been conserving his strength and was now at his peak. The actual strength of the two people was not too different, so Xinjiuli did not have the upper hand for a while. The two people fought there for a long time, but it was still a draw. Ning Xuema had been watching their fight. She was silently analyzing Luo Jiuqin's martial arts. She had been forced to such a miserable state by this bastard 50,000 years later, but she still did not know his true strength. Sooner or later she would have a tough battle with him, and now she had the opportunity to study it. As the saying goes, know yourself and know your enemy and you will never be defeated. Of course, she also paid attention to Xinjiuli's moves, to see how he would deal with Luo Jiuqin's killing moves, and memorized it in her heart. A true expert would learn all kinds of lessons from the fights of other experts to improve themselves. Therefore, the fight between Xinjiuli and Luo Jiuqin made Ning Xuema, as a spectator, improve a lot. Unknowingly, 1 day passed, 2 days passed. The battlefield of the two people also changed frequently. Luo Jiuqin wanted to escape several times, but Xinjiuli set up a barrier around them, isolating them from the outside world. Luo Jiuqin could not break it for a while. As for Ning Xuema, she had been following them, watching from afar. Of course, she was a careful person. No matter where she followed, she would carry the barrier ball with Miao Fan in it, so that Miao Fan had no chance to escape. During this period, Miao Fan begged her, insulted her, and used words to provoke Ning Xuema to let her go. However, Ning Xuema seemed to be smiling and had a good temper, but she was actually a stubborn person. Moreover, when it came to talking, even 10 Miao Fans were not her opponent. Not only did Miao Fan fail to stimulate Ning Xuema, but she was also stimulated by Ning Xuema to the point that she felt dizzy and vomited blood. This evil art that Miao Fan was cultivating could easily cause her to go berserk, and after being repeatedly stimulated by Ning Xuema, in the end, she was so angry that her hands and feet went numb. He fainted again. He was lying upright in the enchantment. Ning Xuema patted her enchantment barrier and chuckled. Zhuge Liang angered Zhou Yu 3 times and finally angered him to death. I've only angered you twice, so you shouldn't die. I hope you can persevere until the third time. She watched the fight between the two for a while and frowned slightly. In the past 2 days of fighting, Luo Jiuqian had wanted to rush to her side and take her hostage several times. However, Xin Jiuli didn't give him a chance. As long as he had the slightest intention to approach Ning Xuema, he would immediately suffer from Xin Jiuli's storm-like attacks. Therefore he couldn't get close to her. At this moment, the two of them had been fighting for 2 days. Luo Jiuqian's strength was not as good as Xin Jiuli's, and he was faintly showing signs of defeat. In the past, when he was about to be defeated, as long as he admitted defeat to Xin Jiuli would let him go and wouldn't force him like now. This time Xin Jiuli really had the intention to kill. The fight between the two of them could be said to be a fight to the death. This kind of fight consumed the most psychokinesis. The foreheads of the two people were already sweating, and they didn't look as ethereal as before. Ning Xuema's gaze paused on Xin Jiuli's face for a moment. He was terrifyingly calm in this fight, and his moves were like moving clouds and flowing water. Chapter 2066. Ning Xuema's gaze paused on Xin Jiuli's face for a moment. He was terrifyingly calm in this battle. His every move was as smooth as flowing water, but it was absolutely powerful. It was just that his face was slightly pale at this moment. It was obvious that he was also tired. Of course, Luo Jiuqian was even more tired. He was in a more sorry state than Xin Jiuli. His clothes were torn in several places and his hair was much more messy. In fact, he had been injured several times during the battle. One of his arms had even been cut off by Xin Jiuli, but he had an abnormal recovery ability. He could quickly regrow it during the battle. He was even more abnormal than the alien, which made Ning Xuema gnash her teeth. Heavenly Dao, the cheat you gave this bastard is too powerful, right? Did you watch the American blockbuster, Alien? Heavenly Dao? Her words were too abstract and Heavenly Dao didn't understand. It said that when God closes a door, he will leave a window for you. But the window you left for God this time is too big, right? It's even wider than the door. You actually gave him such an abnormal recovery ability. It was practically an immortal body. If this continued, when would it end? My great God will be tired. Heavenly Dao say, if this guy's head is cut off, will he be able to regrow it with a whoosh? Heavenly Dao, heavenly secrets cannot be revealed. It was still very principled and wouldn't reveal anyone's secrets. Heavenly Dao, do you know what I hate the most? It's that you obviously don't know, but you keep me in suspense as if you know everything. Heavenly Dao. You're insulting Heavenly Dao again. Aren't you afraid of being struck by lightning? Okay, I know I've stepped on your sore spot again. Yes, I know that you actually don't know where the demigod's Achilles heel is, so you said that. This is a trick that you higher-ups have always liked to play. In our era, it's called playing the Zen machine. I understand. Understand my ass. Understand my ass. Heavenly Dao was angry. I know everything. How can I not know how to destroy him? He's afraid of the heavenly water poison. At this point, Heavenly Dao suddenly stopped. Ning Xuema's heart skipped a beat. So this heavenly water poison was the magic weapon used to kill Luo Jiuqian. It was passed down from the Heavenly Dao. It seemed to be true. It was a pity that he couldn't refine it now. Tian Dao probably knew that it had been provoked by her. 4 or 5 rows of lightning symbols flashed in Ning Xuema's mind, representing its anger. Ning Xuema pretended that she didn't see anything. She just sat there thinking about her own things. No wonder Xin Jiuli said that Luo Jiuqian could only be sealed and could not be killed. So this was the reason. It seemed that even if he defeated Luo Jiuqian, he could only seal him. The Heavenly Dao Stone was actually very miserable. Although it was a high and mighty existence, it was very lonely. This was because it could only communicate with Xin Jiuli, its guardian. And Xin Jiuli was not a talkative person. He only spoke a few words to it and there was no nonsense. Even if it flashed a few hundred words in his mind, Xin Jiuli would not respond. He was not interested and pretended that he didn't see anything. And the Heavenly Dao Stone still needed to establish its prestige. When it needed to be pretentious, it still needed to be pretentious. Therefore, it and Xin Jiuli might not be able to communicate more than 10 sentences in 10 years. Now it finally met a strange person who could communicate with it, Ning Xuema. She was especially talkative. Although most of her words were poisonous and often made the Heavenly Dao Stone so angry that its blood pressure almost rose, it inexplicably wanted to communicate with her more. Only when it talked to her did it feel a little alive. Chapter 2067. Just now, it was unintentionally provoked by Ning Xuema and revealed a bit of heaven's secret. It thought that Ning Xuema would definitely ask it about the heaven's water poison, and how to make it. However, it didn't expect that she wouldn't ask anything from the start. The heavenly Tao stone felt, it was a little suffocated. After waiting for a while, it first brushed a bunch of meaningless symbols in Ning Xuema's mind. When it didn't get any response, it brushed a bunch of astronomical words that only Xinjiuli could understand. Seeing that she still didn't respond, it got slightly angry and started to brush the punctuation marks non-stop. Ning Xuema's thoughts were interrupted by it several times, and she got slightly impatient. Stop fooling around. Heavenly Tao stone, it finally couldn't hold it in anymore. Don't you want to know what the poison of heavenly water is? Ning Xuema's heart stirred. Maybe she should ask and see if it was the same as what Mother Earth said? Thus she asked casually, what is it? The heavenly Tao stone immediately became arrogant again. Heaven's secret cannot be revealed. Ning Xuema smiled gently. Actually, it doesn't matter if you reveal or not, I already know. It's a kind of mixed 9th grade poison, right? It needs 9 knots grass destiny flower. She listed out a bunch of herbs in one breath and didn't miss a single one. The heavenly Tao stone. It felt like it was struck by lightning. How did she know about such a confidential matter? Ning Xuema saw the row of exclamation marks that it had brushed out and knew she had guessed correctly. It seemed like even though Mother Earth wasn't a good person, her words were still very reliable. How did you know? The heavenly Tao stone couldn't hold it in anymore. Ning Xuema tapped her lips with a finger and made a shushing gesture. Heaven's secret cannot be revealed. Heavenly Tao stone. It withered. Ning Xuema got the answer she wanted and no longer paid attention to it. Her attention was attracted by the two people fighting in the sky again, and she discovered a problem. Even though Luo Jiuqin's regenerative ability was strangely strong, he would exhaust a portion of his psychokinesis every time he was injured. Perhaps after exhausting his psychokinesis, he would be able to capture him and seal him. Xinjiuli obviously had the same idea, so he kept pressing Luo Jiuqin, not giving him a chance to breathe. It had been 2.5 days. Judging from Luo Jiuqin's condition, he might be able to hold on for another 2 days. What a long time. Even if she managed to seal this fellow in the end, her almighty would be exhausted. Perhaps she should think of something. Ning Xuema's eyes flickered slightly as she began to think of an idea. It was impossible for her to directly go up and help. After all, her skills were far inferior to theirs. In addition, her skills had yet to fully recover. If she went up, she would only be cannon fodder. She might even be a hindrance to Xinjiuli. After pondering for a while, she glanced at Miao Fan, who was still unconscious. She knew that Miao Fan wouldn't wake up anytime soon, let alone escape. Therefore, she flew away and began to circle the two people who were fighting from afar. That feeling was similar to boredom? At this time, the two people didn't have time to pay attention to her and let her go around. Ning Xuema circled for a while and seemed to finally have enough. She sat down on a cloud and suddenly said in a clear voice, Luo Jiuqin, you are no match for my almighty. Quickly give up your sword and admit defeat. Her voice was not soft and it echoed in the sky. The two people who were fighting naturally heard it. Xinjiuli looked calm, and Luo Jiuqin restrained his expression. He was now fighting with Xinjiuli, so he couldn't be distracted. Naturally, he didn't have time to pay attention to Ning Xuema. Chapter 2068. Luo Jiuqin, you are indeed a demigod. You really have the attributes of a demigod. Gods should take responsibility for their actions, but you don't have this awareness at all. You don't dare to kill people, so you instigate others to do it. Miao Fan, this killing machine was instigated by you, right? Actually, the crime of instigation is also a crime, the same as the crime of the executor. Today, the heavenly Tao already knows what you have done. Don't talk about becoming a main god. I'm afraid you can't even become a demigod in the future. It is about to send down a lightning tribulation to punish you. Look, the clouds in the sky are getting thicker and thicker. This is a sign that it is accumulating power. The heavenly Tao couldn't hold it in anymore. It angrily spammed in Ning Xuema's mind. I don't need to accumulate power to send down a lightning tribulation. Did it think it was the god of thunder and goddess of lightning? The heavenly Tao said that a person like you who brings disaster to the country should be struck down long ago. The heavenly Tao. When did it say that? This was simply a fake imperial edict. Ning Xuema completely ignored the Heavenly Dao Stone's protest and continued to say things to provoke Luo Jiuchen. In general, she scolded Luo Jiuchen as if he was worse than a pig or a dog, angering both humans and gods. She said whatever was infuriating. Her voice was crisp, her pronunciation was clear, and she spoke quickly. Her words kept circling around Luo Jiuchen's ears. Luo Jiuchen really didn't want to talk to her, but she was really good at talking. Many of her words hit his sore spot. For example, she said that he was incompetent and only knew how to play dirty tricks. She even suspected that he was actually a eunuch because his perverted personality and appearance were very similar to that of a eunuch. Luo Jiuchen couldn't talk back during the fight, but when he heard her words he couldn't help but get angry. His emotions were fluctuating and he was distracted for a moment, so he took a few hits from Xinjiuli. Her voice was too noisy. He finally saw how hurtful a person's words could be today. Luo Jiuchen wished he could sew her mouth shut or plug his ears. But he couldn't do either of these things. With Xinjiuli blocking him, he couldn't get close to Ning Xuema. And during the fight he needed to be alert, so naturally he couldn't plug his ears. He wanted to ignore her voice, but it was obvious that she was using some kind of skill when she was scolding him. Every word drilled into his ears. He knew that Ning Xuema was trying to distract him so that he wouldn't be affected by her. But even though he understood, he still couldn't help but care about it. He had been living high and mighty all his life, and this was the first time he had been scolded like this. Although half of what Ning Xuema said was true, being scolded by her still made him feel like his face was on fire. Anger surged in his heart. The biggest taboo in a fight between masters was to be distracted. At this moment he was distracted again and again. He was almost vomiting blood after being hit by Xinjiuli's palm. Xinjiuli, don't you think it's unfair for her to do this? Luo Jiuchen was finally enraged. When he opened his mouth to speak, he was hit by Xinjiuli's sword again. Xinjiuli didn't know whether to laugh or cry when he heard Ning Xuema scolding him. He naturally knew why she was scolding him, but he was about to stop Ning Xuema from continuing. Ning Xuema said again, Luo Jiuchen, I wanted to scold you myself. It has nothing to do with him. He can't control me now anyway. Luo Jiuchen, are you still afraid of others talking about what you did? Ah, right, I heard that you actually have 7 or 8 concubines in the mortal world. Is it just for show? Luo Jiuchen. He was so angry that he almost trembled. No. Most of what Ning Xuema said was made up by herself, which made him want to vomit blood. Chapter 2069. Most of what Ning Xuema said was made up by herself, which made him want to vomit blood. Ah, it's not for show? Then your 7 or 8 concubines are real. They're not for show? Luo Jiuchen gritted his teeth. Shut up. You're angry out of humiliation. Did I step on your sore spot? You're inferior to the great god in everything, but you want to compete with the great god in everything. How can a heartless, despicable, and insidious person like you be the great god? Even if the great god is willing to give up his position, the Heavenly Dao won't agree. The Heavenly Dao is fair. Right, Heavenly Dao. Today the Heavenly Law Stone finally experienced Ning Xuema's eloquence. It was in the middle of listening to Ning Xuema's words when she suddenly called it out and praised it. It immediately became happy and proudly wrote a line of words, of course I'm the fairest. Haha, the Heavenly Dao also agrees with me. Luo Jiuchen, what else are you not convinced about? Even the Heavenly Dao says you're not qualified. Luo Jiuchen's anger had been surging. Hearing her words he couldn't help but sneer. You're lying again. You're just a demon and not the guardian of the Heavenly Dao. How can you hear what the Heavenly Dao says? Originally I couldn't hear or see, but the Heavenly Dao wants to use my mouth to warn you. The Heavenly Dao has seen all the wicked things you've done. Good and evil will be rewarded in the end. It's not that it won't, but it's not time yet. Heavenly Dao, strike a bolt of lightning and show him your miracle. The Heavenly Dao originally agreed with what Ning Xuema said, but to strike lightning for no reason. The Heavenly Dao pretended to be dead and didn't respond. Luo Jiuchen wanted to laugh. I knew you were lying. The Heavenly Dao stone is in the Fantian Palace, not here. What can it see? Heavenly Dao, this person is saying that you're deaf and blind. He's insulting the Heavenly Dao. Ning Xuema immediately said, show him your miracle. Otherwise he will really think you're just a stone. The Heavenly Dao stone also felt that Luo Jiuchen was too arrogant. He actually thought it couldn't see. Crack. A bolt of golden lightning suddenly burst out of the clouds and struck Luo Jiuchen's head. Luo Jiuchen originally thought that Ning Xuema was just talking nonsense, But he didn't expect it to be true. When the golden lightning split out, although it didn't cause him any harm, it made his entire body stiffen. Even Shinjioli, who had been calm and collected, revealed a look of surprise in his eyes. During this conversation, Luo Jiuchen had been fighting with Shinjioli. Because he was absent-minded, there were several more injuries on his body. Luo Jiuchen was already at a disadvantage. Now that he was distracted by Ning Xuema, he couldn't concentrate on fighting with Shinjioli. He was defeated one after another. Ning Xuema knew when to stop. She smiled and sat down not far away. She raised her hand and rubbed her throat. After saying so much, her mouth was a little dry, and her throat was a little sore. She probably saw that Luo Jiuchen was about to be defeated, so she relaxed. She actually drove the cloud under her body slightly closer to the battle between the two people and leisurely watched there. During the fight, Luo Jiuchen knew that Shinjioli wouldn't let him go this time. He knew that he wouldn't die, but he would be sealed. He would be sealed alive. He didn't want this result, so he was always looking for a chance to escape. However, Shinjioli's defense was watertight. He couldn't escape from the other party's grasp no matter how hard he tried. Now that he was injured one after another and lost a lot of his power, it was almost a matter of time before he was captured. Chapter 2070. He was very anxious and occasionally glanced to the side. He actually saw Ning Xuema sitting not far away from him. That girl was probably tired of scolding him. She was half lying on the cloud and watching the show. She was so relaxed that it made him want to grit his teeth. His eyes lit up. A faint light flashed across his eyes. Seeing Shinjioli's palm coming at him again, he couldn't dodge it. He was hit on the shoulder by Shinjioli's palm and his entire body flew out. And the direction he flew out was the direction of Ning Xuema. Luo Jiuchen flew out as fast as lightning. He endured the pain of his shoulder blade breaking and flipped over in the air. He grabbed at Ning Xuema, who was watching the show. He wanted to take her hostage again. Only then would he have a chance to escape. So he endured Shinjioli's attack and used the force to fly towards Ning Xuema. He was like a big bird flying in the sky. His fingers were about to grab Ning Xuema's lapel, but he didn't expect that the person who was lying there without any defense would suddenly roll away like lightning, directly rolling down the cloud. Luo Jiuchen's fingers grabbed empty air and he couldn't stop for a moment. His entire body fell onto the cloud. His shoulder hurt so much that he almost vomited blood, but he still subconsciously wanted to jump up. But his body seemed to be sucked in by something and he couldn't jump up. Not only that, he felt like he was stuck in a quagmire. His body seemed to be glued to the ground. The more he struggled, the more he was glued to the ground. He had fallen into a trap. He had fallen into that girl's trap again. Her cloud was strange. It should be a very powerful mechanism. She had deliberately laid there to lure him into a trap. Luo Jiuchen was so angry that he wanted to vomit blood. He was a powerful person after all. Suddenly, his entire body emitted a purple flame. He roasted the cloud below him, causing it to boil like boiling water. He finally broke free and jumped up from the cloud. He had used the golden cicada shell shedding technique to escape, but the purple clothes on his body had been completely melted by the strange cloud. Even his skin and hair seemed to have been washed by sulfuric acid. His original handsome and elegant appearance was gone. At a glance, he looked like a charcoal man who had been burnt. Originally, his recovery ability was amazing. However, because he had used up too much of his psychokinesis, he was unable to recover immediately. Thus, he was forced to flee in such a sorry state. Shinjioli was still chasing after him. Luo Jiuchen didn't even have time to change his clothes from the storage space. Of course, he also didn't have time to look for Ning Xuema. Since that girl had schemed against him, she must have found a way out for herself. She must be hiding in some corner with her arms crossed and laughing at him. He dashed in a certain direction. If his calculations were correct, that direction led to the netherworld. Perhaps those people from the celestial world were still waiting there. He had to capture a hostage first. That was his plan now. However, although he had a good idea, the reality was not as simple as it seemed. He didn't know what mechanism he had stepped on while he was running. There was a flash of red light in front of his eyes, and countless red lights flew out. He was caught in a daze for a moment and was wrapped up like a cocoon. Of course, he used all his strength to break free again. The price of breaking free was that more than half of the skin that had just grown back was torn off again. He was already close to the end of his rope. After being injured and plotted against, he finally couldn't hold on any longer. When he escaped again, his footsteps were a little weak. He rushed forward dizzily. Suddenly, there was a gust of wind above his head, and thousands of golden lights shrouded him. You're tuning in to the Han Li's Wuxia Adventures YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.